Evening. This is the Finance Committee meeting for February 24th, 2022. And I'm going to call the Finance Committee to order. And we also have a joint meeting tonight with Capital Outlay. I'll turn it over to the chair of the Capital Outlay, Beth.
I'd like to call to order the Capital Outlay Committee meeting tonight for February 24th.
Excellent. Can we stand for the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just let's keep Shane in our prayers. That's the only request that I would have tonight. I guess he's doing pretty good, but he still needs our prayers. The finance director indicated she has no update. Bob Fennessy, the town administrator, is out tonight. He's sick. So with the permission of the committee, I'd like to go and save capital outlay discussion for the end of the transfer request and the budget with recreation and EMS. Is that all right with everybody?
Sure.
Okay, so Dave? Andy, can you give him a microphone?
Sure. Thank you. I'll share with you. Thank you, Andy.
I'm going to pass this around the room because I don't have copies for everybody. So I'll send a couple this way and I'll send one this way.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
And I'll send that way and just send it right back so I can pass it down.
The reason I am here tonight, I have put in a request for transfer from the reserve fund for my department in the amount of $56,495. And the reason for this, through the Capital Outlay Committee this year, we were looking to purchase a new 2023 F-350 one-ton dump truck that would serve as a general purpose DPW truck and as a plow truck. And if that went through the normal chain, it would be Capital Outlay has approved it. It would go to town meeting for approval, and then we would proceed from there. But the reason I'm looking to change that is I got a lead on a 2021 F-350. It has 2,179 miles on it. I've looked at it with my deputy director and the head mechanic, and it is in brand new condition. We can purchase this vehicle for $56,495, so that is the amount of my request. And if we were able to purchase this, what this would do would take that capital request out of the Capital Outlay Committees. That line would come out. We'd be able to purchase this now versus probably waiting a year from now, the way vehicles are running. To satisfy the procurement, mass procurement laws and regulations. So what I've done is through my municipal purchasing group, I've got prices on, you can't get any 2022s anymore. There's still some left on the lot. I do have some comp prices on those. But also for 2023, prices are going up right now. They don't have direct numbers, but they're probably going up around $8,000 over 22 prices. So you're going to see significant increase in vehicle costs coming up as well. So I think this is, that price is good. It's going to save us a substantial amount of money. The truck does have to be outfitted with a plow, which I will take out of my operating costs. So I won't be looking for any additional money for that. This is just the purchase of the dump truck itself.
Anybody?
What are the savings that we're getting instead of buying a brand new vehicle?
Well, I can tell you the request that the Finance Committee approved was for $110,000. And that was, we're not comparing apples to apples. There was a few different things in the request, but basically the meat and potatoes of the truck is the same. It's the same engine. We'll look different body, but the truck we're purchasing will suit us fine. We'll do the same thing we're looking to purchase, basically. So you're looking at, from the original request, From the Capital Outlay Committee, you're looking at $50,000 savings.
Excellent.
Pat?
Okay, Dave, and just to reiterate, you have looked at how this relates to the procurement law.
Yes, yep, yep, so we have the comps, that'll all go in. And it gets a little, you can't always compare apples
No,
to
right,
apples.
no, I've done-
Exactly,
I've
but.
done the used vehicles
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, no, so I have the documentation that shows everything, so there's no question as to what we're
Beautiful.
saving.
Beautiful.
Yep.
I knew you would.
Yeah, and also, through my municipal dealership, the dealers can run, I'm sure everybody's probably heard of a Carfax. They can actually run a different report that gives you more in-depth history of that vehicle. I just wanted to make sure, this wasn't traded in because it was a lemon and it was a 3-strike rule or something with that lower mileage. But it's not. The only thing the truck's ever had done to it was a windshield replacement, which probably happened during transit. So that was done. My thought is, so where I'm purchasing or hoping to purchase the vehicle is from Land Rover of Hanover. Now, that'll start some rumors. I want to purchase a dump truck from a Land Rover dealership, so people can have fun with that. But it was used, my guess is, because it was traded in, and with the history, they didn't get it from an auction. It was traded, it was purchased new from Waltham Ford. It was used for 6 months, and it was traded into Land Rover of Hanover. It looks like someone hauled mulch in the dump bed. Probably bought it. Somebody with more money than all of us sitting here, and hauled mulch and traded it in for a new Land Rover, I'm guessing. But that's what the history tells me. So there's nothing that shows that it's too good to be true. So it just looks like, I think, what is a smart purchase for the town, and it's going to save us quite a bit of money.
We've got the money in the reserve account, right?
We
It's
haven't
like
touched-
115.
We've taken 10,000 out of the reserve so
Our
far for
last
Carver
meeting.
Dayhill, that's it.
Right. Sue, correct me if I'm wrong. If, theoretically, if we end this fiscal year and don't use everything that's in that reserve fund account, that, my guess is, gets recertified as free cash, and next year at town meeting could be reallocated to some other purpose, right? Right. So the reason why I ask the question is, theoretically, if we don't use this $56,000 for this, 12 months from now, we could use it for the exact same purpose at town meeting. I only point it out because I don't think this is like traditionally what we would use this money for. But if we don't use it this year, we'd use it for the exact same purpose next year.
But not for the exact same price.
No, we'd probably wouldn't, the truck
So-
wouldn't be available, and we'd have to spend 110
Right.
on the truck.
I think it's worth giving some history on this, because I want full transparency, so everybody needs to know exactly what's going on. Beth's husband, Josh, works as the lead mechanic for Land Rover. This truck came in because they were buying a Land Rover. And he sent Beth a text and says, isn't DPW, because she's doing the capital, aren't they looking for a dump truck? She said, I think so. So she sent me the pictures, I sent them to John. Dave was snowmobiling. Dave came back from his weekend off in one piece, and they were gonna hold this vehicle for the weekend at Josh's request. So Monday came along, and they didn't hear back from the town, so they released it. Dave wanted to talk about it on Wednesday, which was a couple weeks ago now, and it was still available. So they put a hold back on it again. Josh is very well regarded there, so there was no issue with that. The number at that point, and it was advertised online, 61,000. Dave went down to look at it with his mechanic, and John went too, right?
Yes.
And John? And called me back and said, this is exactly the same truck we would order if we were placing an order. It's a gas engine. Trouble is, you're gonna order this in May after town meeting, or even July. You're not gonna see it for 8, 9, 10 months. We just went through this with the fire department, actually with you guys and your
Still
septic
waiting on a
cleaner,
bucket
your
truck,
sewer
yes.
truck. And the bucket truck still is nowhere to be found. We bought that last year, and there's still no bucket truck. So I understand what you're saying, but like everything else that's used, these don't just come along all the time, especially the way this market's getting now and numbers are getting crazy. So I went to Bob Fennessy, who's the procurement officer, and he's the interim town administrator, and I said, what do you think? And he said, in fact, if you noticed when I passed this around, this transfer request was signed by Dave, by our finance director, Sue, and by Bob Fennessy. He said, absolutely, there's nothing wrong with doing this, there's nothing wrong, this is perfect, you're saving $50,000. They're getting what they need, $110,000 comes out of the capital plan, and we have it in the reserve account. We did the exact same thing with the fire department last year when we backed up and supported their Cascade machine. In the event that the CARES Act did not pay it, we would have paid that $71,000 bill. We did the exact same thing for recreation, and we gave $28,000 for cameras. So this, to me, is exactly what this fund is for, and I think it's the best use of this money because we're saving 50 grand. And he doesn't want any more than that. He's going to put a plow on it, do the lights out of his current budget, and we take $110,000 out of capital. So that's just my opinion, but I want you to know that we've gone around the whole gamut with the interim town administrator, with the finance director, with Dave and John. Pat had called me up and brought up that it was a concern about procurement. So he did the comps, and so we've covered all of that base. Bob Fennessy, unfortunately, is homesick tonight, but if he were here, he would explain that he's 100% behind this. He thinks it's foolish to not take advantage of it, if we're able to. So for whatever all that is worth, I think it's a smart move, because they're also looking for a wood chipper this year.
Yes, correct.
And a scag mower. So, you know, it's $110,000 less in the capital plan, which I think benefits everybody, and this money's sitting in the reserve account. So that's where I'm at with it. Anybody else? Ron?
Yeah, are we in good shape relative to shortfalls in people's operating budgets? So that, because that's ultimate, you know, sometimes that's what the money gets utilized for.
Are we still in business, Sue?
Because it would leave us about $59,000 to handle any shortfalls in any budgets coming to the end of the year.
Nothing is, everybody seems to be right on track. Am I wrong?
There's a few things that we need to look at, but I think we can take it within the budgets that we have.
So we're not going to need transfers.
No, hopefully.
Okay. Well, we'll have 59,000. We just.
Right. Anybody else? Capital Outlay want to weigh in on this? Feel free.
I just wanted to say that I was hesitant to recommend the truck, just where I am on the capital outlay, but it was a good deal for the town, I thought, when my husband saw it. And I just want to make sure I put out there that he gets no kickback whatsoever from this. He's a mechanic there, or a technician, but just so everyone's aware that we're not getting any piece of this, no kickback comes to me or my husband. He just works there.
In fact, he's gonna wash the truck before it comes, right?
It will be, actually, they should when it leaves. Everyone does.
You know, you can say what you want, but the fact is that was a huge concern of hers.
Oh, yeah.
She was very concerned about this. This is a great deal for the town, but, and she said, you know, I don't want the limelight, I don't want the thank you, but we got to tell everybody. Because if we don't tell them now, and we do this, and 6 months from now, this becomes much bigger than it needs to be, because right now it's nothing. But you know as well as I do that 6 months or a year from now, this becomes a big deal, because it came, you know, through a word of mouth kind of a thing. So, like I said, you'll find it on the internet advertised at 61, and you'll see it here for 50. I was surprised you got it that cheap. I didn't think they drop it down that far. Good.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the transfer as submitted.
Second?
I have a motion made and seconded to approve a transfer of $56,495 to be transferred to account number 01. Is that a 4?
Yes.
Okay. 01-423-0390-5870 for the purchase of a 2021 F-350 dump truck for operations and maintenance. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm gonna abstain on the vote.
We have one abstention.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
701.
Beth, thank you, husband.
701.
And actually, it's the first time we've ever had a dump truck traded in a Land Rover.
She got all mad at me because I said Josh should probably buy that. She said, I'll kill him.
No.
Sue, I'll give you this.
Let's see, 54,000 is no brainer.
Yeah, so that will come down.
And then Dave can give you the supporting. Oh, let me give you need that bill of sale, Dave? That, oh, you
That's
got
true.
one. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, 54 from,
Yeah, 110.
yeah.
Yeah.
But if we'd buy that truck, you're allocating 110, it was, no, 156,000 savings, so 54.
What's that? Yeah.
Take up 54 for a truck.
You signed off on it?
We're just buying it now, so.
Yeah, my husband
And you, I understand your concern, you were concerned about that, but I think with the explanation,
You had it was the
the
first
clarification you did, it's perfect.
Just because it makes sense,
Okay.
common sense.
Next budget discussion.
Through the municipal.
I'm gonna ask EMS, Mike Ryan.
That's right.
Mike was unavailable last week.
We got,
Oh, look at this, more brochures.
it's gonna be better than the five.
Are you competing with Craig?
What did Craig make these?
looks like it.
Craig showed me how to use the copy to make the books.
Thank you.
He showed Mark how to do it, but he hasn't used it.
You didn't have the police chief proofread this for you, did you?
Yeah.
I wanna know why we don't get this from the police department. Look at this, huh?
Thanks, Mike.
I have an extra one.
Hey, Mike, wants to take that?
I think he's got
I saw you grab it, Owen. I think.
I think they're past the fire department.
You know? Has Craig seen this?
What? I don't know. No, I don't think so. Don't tell him.
Oh, wait till tomorrow. He'll see it tomorrow.
Don't tell him. It's actually not as bad. I mean, his books look a lot better than that does.
Yeah, but you got covers.
So,
We
yeah,
can repurpose these.
exactly. So when we're done, I need them back, so I don't have to take out my budget next year. So I can do it again.
That's the right thing to say. Thank you.
See? Reusable. It was a lot less expensive doing that than having the print company bind the books.
No doubt.
Yeah, that's a lot less money. So it was, came before you guys last year. It was my first year as chief to actually present the budget. Kind of do the same things as for those of you who had been on the committee before, you've heard the song and dance before, I guess, the best way to describe it. But for those who are new to it and for those at home who are watching, I kind of like to do a review of our department. And the handouts you'll see there's definitely different sections that kind of go over more in detail how the EMS department for our town operates. We do operate a lot differently than a lot of other towns, as most towns EMS departments are part of a full-time fire department or they're a third service such as a private ambulance company. We work very similarly to towns such as Wareham, New Bedford, and even Worcester that have separate EMS from the other two public safety agencies. The part that really brings us apart from everybody else is that we accomplish this with full-time staffing with part-time employees. So that's kind of the big one. So currently the town operates 2 Class 1 ambulances out of our central station located right behind Town Hall. It's due to that location in town that allows us to provide that. I mean, we're able to respond to most calls pretty quickly because we're centrally located, and 58 is a great thoroughway straight right through the center of town. So allows us that access. We currently staff their paramedic level ambulances. Every shift we have at least 1 paramedic and 1 EMT on shift. During the daytimes, a couple years ago, we decided to add 1 EMT onto the shift as well, so we have an extra staff member. And that extra staff member can assist with calls on scene, but also is available for second calls when they come in. We found that during the daytime, sometimes it was a little harder to get people to come back on recalls to do the second ambulance calls. That works out very well with myself being around most days and available most days, unless unfortunately tied into meetings that I can't break away from. But it does help us to capture as many calls as we can. With the staffing model, we avoid the increased costs that come with providing benefits, so health benefits, overtime, things, we avoid those costs by being able to use a complete part-time per diem staffing model. It also helps out that professionally it helps out because a lot of our staff members come from other departments so when they come to work their 12 or 24-hour shift with us, have already worked 40, 48 hours somewhere else within the past week or so, getting more experience. So they bring that experience from those other maybe busier systems to our community, which gives us an immense amount of experience on our ambulances, which is very, very vital. So right now we have, as the time this was 43, we're actually up to 45 highly trained personnel. We actually up to 21 paramedics and 24 EMTs, and several of our current EMTs are in paramedic training. And we have a couple EMTs that are moving up to paramedic level after finishing school. So it definitely makes us very confident in the care that we're providing. We also do an internal quality assurance program in which we review 100% of the calls that we go on. That review looks over to make sure the documentation is being done properly, make sure that care is being done up to the standards of the state-wide treatment protocols, as well as any regulations we need to follow. And it's in line with our hospital that we deal with. Beth Israel, Deaconess Plymouth is our primary medical director of hospital. Dr. Martin Edwards is our medical director. He's very much involved with our organization. We talk to him very often about things. He has no concerns regarding our service and what we're providing. He's actually very excited. We've recently increased our EMTs to do advanced skills, which is something that he needed to sign off on. So currently all of our EMTs are trained in giving albuterol nebulizer treatments, CPAP masks, which has been only for paramedics for years. They can do check and inject for epinephrine and glucagon, which is where they actually drop the medication in a syringe and inject it in the thigh, where they used to only be able to use EpiPens for that. And the last one was EKG acquisition. So they're able to put the leads on the patient, whether it be a regular 4-lead or a 12-lead for those cardiac patients. And they're allowed to actually put the leads on, acquire the EKG. They can't interpret it to say what's going on with the patient, but it helps us out because sometimes on second calls, the medic is responding from far distance away. The ambulance is on scene first. So now the EMTs will be able to get on scene with the ambulance, use that monitor, and by the time the paramedic walks up to the patient, they have past medical history, vital signs, and an EKG. So it just speeds up the assessment and the diagnostic process. So in 2021, looking back to that, the COVID-19 pandemic caused many changes, many challenges and changes in how we do things. We had a lot of problems with PPE, as far as getting it and then giving it out to our staff, but everyone got the equipment they needed. We had to change some policies for responding to calls. But through that, we also developed a community EMS program in which we assist with certain things out in the public that we weren't doing before because the town lost their VNA contract because of COVID. So right now our staff is every week helping out with the Council on Aging with blood pressure checks. Once a month we do a blood glucose and blood cholesterol screening at the same time at the Council on Aging. We also were able to do multiple vaccination clinics in 2021, both for adults and children, and we were also able to do at-home vaccinations for patients who were immobile and couldn't make it out to CVS or one of the many large vaccination clinics they had there. People keep asking about the boosters, and we actually have no access to any boosters. So it's unfortunate that the mobility impaired and homebound who want to get it, we have no route to do it. That may change, but as of right now, they still haven't changed that. And also in the beginning of the first several months of the pandemic, we actually saw some problems with reduced call volume. So being a self-sufficient service, the call volume helps us remain self-sufficient, and we saw a 25% drop-off in calls in the last quarter of 2020, and that we had to rebuild back into 2021. We had to build that back up. Luckily, that's worked out. So currently, we still bring in more revenue than we expend each year, including what we turn back at the end of the year for unexpended funds back into the ambulance fund. The budget of the ambulance service is comprised of transfers that come out of the ambulance fund, and the ambulance fund is built up from revenue received by patients that we transport. Again, this year, we're happy to report the call volume's up. It's up a lot more than what we had intended. So we expected about a 7% increase in run volume. We're at about a 12% increase in run volume. We're looking to match the run volume from FY 2018, which was over 1,500 runs, which is, it's good that we're that busy. It's not good for the patients, but it's good for the department to be that busy. Actual receipts at the end of FY 2021 that ended on June 30th, we actually brought in $799,862, and the expenditures from salary and operating accounts totaled $789,000. So roughly it was about a $10,000 difference in what we expended and what we brought in. And again, the first several months of June, July, and August, the money we're receiving from the low call volume from April, May, and June of the previous year. So last year we responded to 1529 calls in FY21 and transported 1158. Again, it showed about 27% decrease in the beginning. FY 2021 through December 31st, ambulance responses are projected to exceed last year by approximately 8%. So again, we did 1,529 calls, but we did about 1,200 transports. We're looking to be, I said originally 1,500 for this year. It's probably gonna be more than 1,600. And our transports are gonna probably topple over around 1,300 transports. So, and with that being up, our receipts are on pace to at least match, if not exceed last year's totals. So, at current best estimation, we're looking to bring in more than $900,000 this year at the rate we're going, as long as we keep collecting as well as we do. Of course, collections is an issue across the board, but no one collects 100%. We're normally pretty good at collecting about 95, 96% of our bills. The budget this year is a level service budget again, which provides primarily for the EMS crew with the current staffing we use of 2 EMTs and a paramedic during the day, 1 EMT and a paramedic at night, 365 days a year, holidays included. And it has an EMS crew standing by in the station. The budget request includes a 4.5% increase in the salary account to provide for possibly for personnel raises if approved by town meeting, and also a 3% increase in the operating account due to increased costs of medical supplies that we have out there. The good news is we're looking at also some ways to reduce costs on the operating account side for next year that hopefully will make it so at the end of the year we have a lot more money to turn back in at the end of FY23. So we have a lot of equipment we're looking to try to get more life out of. We're also looking at changing some of the software we use, be less expensive to work that way. And again, that 4.5% should help us cover the increased call volume. So that's the other concern. The more calls we have, especially the more second calls we have, that is, we have to estimate that cost for salary because we pay people to come back at a 3-hour minimum to do those calls. So we have to kind of figure out how that's going to work out. So the salary budget also includes funds to provide for the flexibility to increase staffing on shifts where history has shown that we've been busy and that in-town personnel weren't really available to respond because some of our staff don't live in town. We need to sometimes bring them in and put them on shift. Again, storms like tonight and tomorrow being one of those factors. So when we have to add those staffs. This approach has been successful in decreasing the need for mutual aid ambulances to cover our second calls dramatically and allows us to capture revenue and provide enhanced services. So the ambulance fund is in sound financial condition with a starting balance on July 1 of $331,040, which is what was left over after taking out the salary and the operating budgets for this current fiscal year. So that's kind of our base that we're building on. So through the end of January, I don't have the number right in front of me, unfortunately. Through the end of January, I want to say we brought in $589,000 so far this year. Again, so roughly just under 600 in the first 7 months of the year. So that does look good to, bringing in not a little bit over 900 at the end of the year, hopefully. And then that will put the ambulance fund in a pretty good, healthy situation before taking out this budget, which is approximately $905,000 for next year's budget. Anyone have any questions?
The $905,000, there's also an offset on the revenue side for the exact same amount of money. So in essence, EMS cost the town nothing. Is that correct? So, and then the only other question I got is that magic word again, other professional services, $61,000. What's in your other professional services, please?
Other professional services is the payment to the billing company. So we have a billing company that does our medical billing for us. They're at 4%, which is the industry standard. It's actually very low. Some places are paying more. So that covers other professional services. So that can be a good amount of money the more we bill. Other stuff includes any uniform supplies. So we use that because they do embroidery and things of that nature. Any type of signage we have to do or lettering comes out of that as well. It's basically anything we have to contract somebody to do work for us, whether it be a couple $100 or a couple $1,000.
We're not, I don't want to get into the nitpicky of,
Yep.
of individual line items and stuff, but we're trying to move to a place where we do not see this anymore.
Okay.
Where we don't see other professional services, or if we do, it becomes a headline for some subcategories.
Okay.
Just so that when everybody looks at this, they don't sit back and think that it's the same wording in virtually every department.
Yep.
So it makes it look like we've got this tin can full of hidden money over here that we can use, and it's all under the same heading, with no real definition. So we're trying to find a way to bring out the transparency on like the big stuff.
Right. So maybe like
So-
contractual services
Yeah,
or something like
so
that.
that,
Something.
you know, something that would give it a little more definition, so.
We did that. We had other. Okay, it wasn't other professional. It was another other type services line item. We changed that to communications because we use that for fax machines, cell phones, things like that. So it's anything.
And that's it's self-explanatory.
Exactly.
So when you
So
look
we-
at that and you see, oh, this is for cell phones
Yep.
and communication, now they understand it.
Correct.
But when it says, you know, other something or other, it's like, well, what's this?
Yeah, and especially where it's, you know, pretty high up there as part of our costs. It's like almost a little bit less than 50% of our budget on our operating budget side. So.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I got a question. So a two-part question. You mentioned there's some years you have an excess at the end of the year.
Yep.
Did you call that an ambulance fund?
So so because of the way that everything's the fund has been set up from back in the 80s when they set up this ambulance fund through Mass General Law, all the money taken out of that has to be used for the operations of an ambulance service. And that's the only thing that money can be used for. So at the end of the year, when we don't expend that money, the money that we don't spend gets transferred back into the ambulance fund. So it goes back in and gets added into what revenue we brought in, and then we're able to pull from that the following year. So it helps keep the health of the fund.
When we have to purchase a new ambulance, I mean, how do we account for that?
So new ambulance comes out of the ambulance fund as well. So that money that went back in can be used when you take that money out of the ambulance fund for purchasing new ambulance, which is on the capital outlay project for this year. So we'll be taking the money for the new ambulance out of that fund, and it will leave us pretty low, but we feel we can build that up over the next few years.
Typically, the EMS service, and the former chairman of the select board can probably expand on this, has always been self-sufficient. You know, I think there have been a couple of years where you borrowed, or the EMS has
Yep.
borrowed some money from the town to purchase an ambulance, and then the following year or 2 years, they paid it back. So the net cost to the town really is zero.
Yeah, and we've done that in the past. The last ambulance we bought in 2017, I think we borrowed, it was anywhere from $20,000 to $40,000 we had to borrow from the town for the purchase of the power stretcher. I want to say it was $20,000 we had to borrow for the purpose of a power stretcher, just because we bought one for the new ambulance, but we couldn't have a power stretcher in one ambulance and not in the other because of just uniformity. So we borrowed money from the town and then paid that off the next fiscal year. We took that right out of the ambulance fund and paid that off.
Now, you got some stuff from the CARES Act this year too, right?
So yeah, we got some money from CARES Act, and we get some provider relief funding from CARES Act to kind of offset the loss of call revenue. But yes, we were able to secure in fiscal year 2020, we were able to secure a response vehicle. We also that we use as a command vehicle now, as well as a COVID response vehicle. We were able to secure money for online training platform that we used for 2 years, and a lot of PPE, a video laryngoscope system, which is used for inserting breathing tubes into people's airways. It's a lot easier to do that so you don't get as close. And then even more recently, we were able to put what they call power load stretcher systems in both trucks, which basically combines with the power stretchers, and it actually physically loads the stretcher into the ambulance. So there's one person can load a patient. You know, if the patient fits on the stretcher, they could be 600 pounds. one person who, as long as their finger works, can literally click it in and press a button, and the machine lifts the stretcher off the ground, lifts the legs up, and then you just slide it in, and it clicks and it locks into place. It's a one person load and remove. The manufacturer says they don't recommend one person just in case, but if it had to be, you can do it that way. So it definitely is a great tool. It's many departments are going to it because of the decreasing amount of injuries that can happen from back or shoulder injuries from lifting these stretchers up and then pushing them in gets reduced. So it helps with also with the possible long-term costs for injuries.
I just have a question. So you said that, we lost our VNA contract.
Yes.
So I can see that if you go to the Board of Health budget, but they've put it back in for FY '23, so do we have a new Board of Health coming on, a new VNA coming on for the Board of Health?
I believe that they're using that money to offset the cost for like screening for COVID and things of that nature. Other nursing services would be the best thing, but I haven't had a chance to follow with the health agent to see if they are going to recontract with another VNA services. I mean, the unfortunate part is when COVID hit, Cape Cod VNA, who was our VNA services, basically said we can't come over the bridge because we're so busy down here. So left us and a lot of other communities in the area kind of on our own, and that's when this community EMS came up, that we said we could go help out with people in their homes and things of that nature. So
Yeah, I know COVID put a big strain on a lot of VNAs, so they were all getting out of that business.
Exactly.
So,
Yep.
I don't know if I'm just wondering if they're budgeting 11,000 and then you have a piece in your budget, if we've double counted somewhere.
Yeah, so I mean, our community EMS is, there is a hit on our budget to do it, but it's definitely something that we feel it has a value. It allows us to get out there with the patients, and a lot of times we also are reviewing other things such as their files of life, which is kind of a very important informational document for them to have in their homes. So that if we do show up at their house and they can't answer questions, they can actually give us that and list their medications, their history and everything, and a lot of pertinent information. So, and we like having that work relationship with the council and agent. It also helps us maybe identify some people who are maybe at risk and we may be going to see more often, and allows us to work with the council and agent on fall prevention and things of that nature.
I think it's two separate items. I think that the Board of Health, and I could be wrong, but it seems to me that the Board of Health was using VNA where they were compiling the COVID numbers and getting the updates from the surrounding towns and communities, and
Yeah,
I think
like the Maven report, I believe, is what that is
I think the
used
reporting was
for.
Yeah.
part of that whole thing, right down to even the 2 years ago in the summertime when we had the tsetse fly thing going on with the fleas, or
Yep.
the bugs. What the heck were they? Lyme disease, that was
Yep.
it. Was it Lyme disease?
Triple E.
They do TV
Triple E.
and all that kind of stuff.
I didn't get any of it, so,
Tsetse flies?
whatever, you know.
South Africa.
But they do other
So-
things too, like if
Yeah.
you had TB or something, they would follow you in the
Yep.
community.
That's why I'm not in the medical field.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
A couple of questions, more on the capital side. The
Yes.
adequacy of the station, your location now, do you see that as being adequate for?
I do definitely see it as being adequate for us now. The one issue that we are going to come to down the road is ambulances. So currently, we are able to get ambulances on a van chassis, which is a 450. The chances of us being able to do that next for the next ambulance, which will be in 2027, we may run into an issue with that because they are really moving away from those and going with the pickup chassis. And our vendor that we're using for the build, actually, when he brought the demo, brought a pickup chassis. He had it on a Dodge Ram chassis, and the guys loved it. And I'm like, well, it won't fit in our station. And we pulled it. We actually backed it into the station. The back bumper was 1 inch away from the back wall, and we couldn't shut the door because the front bumper was 2 inches too far forward. So that's the issue we're going to run into with the station. Is the station is going to be too small for us to put an ambulance in, possibly in the next 5 years. I'm hoping not, but that is concerned.
It's a garage issue of a garaging. You'd have to add some garage bays that would
Yep.
be adequate.
Correct.
Now, the DPW back in the day used to punch a hole in the back wall so that the vehicle could
Yeah, but the
extend.
back wall of that garage is is the lunchroom.
It's the hallway. It's the hallway that goes in between. So that's what the guy said. They go, we can just take that wall down. I'm like, no, we can't. It's a load bearing wall, first of all. Second of all, it goes right into our hallway. So, but yeah, I mean, it definitely does fit. I mean, it wouldn't be out of the range to start maybe looking at what could be possibilities for, moving us
Well,
if
if,
it
I
have to
mean,
be.
if you know the vehicles that are gonna be replaced are gonna require different garaging, then that should be something to get in queue for the cap outlay.
Yep.
Because that probably would fall outside of what you can handle inside your budget.
There was
Yeah,
some,
but we have an empty fire station next door that, I think that was always thought of, that could be rehabbed and turned, am I wrong?
yeah, so the discussion did come up, and I think infancy of the discussions was to move EMS over into the old fire station. And that is definitely something we can look into. I mean, the issue we're gonna run into, I think, with that moving over there, but again, I mean, it's going off the top of my head, is with everything else, we're gonna need to have different, separate living quarters for men and women, which currently, right now, we do have 2 separate bunk rooms, we do have 2 separate bathrooms. We really have a locker room that no one gets changed in, but I'm not too sure what the regulations are gonna be that we need to meet in order to house and have people sleeping. When that building was originally constructed, nobody was living in it. So the ambulance station really, when it first got built, was meant for just people picking up the ambulance and maybe staying over 1 or 2 nights. Now we have 2 people sleeping in that building at a minimum, or 2 people in that building 24/7. And sometimes, like tonight, I have 4 people in that building. I have all males on tonight, which makes it easy, because then they can just separate to the bunk rooms. But if I had 1 female and 3 males on, 1 female would get the women's bunk room that has 4 beds, and the men would be in 3 beds in a bunk room with 4 beds in it. So I think that's something, it's working, and if we have extra cots that we can set up if we have to. But it's definitely something we need to probably start looking at to see what the feasibility is to move over there and then to be able to house and provide at least what we have now without
It
losing
sounds like
anything.
either way, there's gonna be some additional
Yep.
work needed. And
Oh, yeah.
certainly from what, the savings the town experiences, it certainly would be
Well,
money
yeah,
well
there's no
spent
doubt.
for whatever we have to do to accommodate.
We
Yeah,
could
so
even
that's-
move over 1 bay into where the DPW area is used now, because that runs the full front to back. So you'd have to rehab that side, and there'd be room for the ambulance on the other side of what would be your office.
Yep.
On the next
Right.
bay over.
And there
My-
is-
My only
There's
point
a
is
lot
that
of
if that's,
options with
if that's
those 2
coming,
buildings, there's no
Yep.
doubt.
it's not too early to start trying to
No, and the
spitball
other,
as to what the best solution.
and the other thing the other thing that's available as well is off the back side of the station, towards the end, more closer to the library. Off the back side there, it's always been left to be built on. So there is plan to be able to extend out back and maybe put a bigger bay or 2 bays off the back, and then you can build you can create a doorway to get in there from the inside of the building. So that was expansion plan.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, thanks for a good presentation, like you always do, and the way the other public safety chiefs do also. We're fortunate to have you all. To expand upon the facilities and so forth, particularly as it relates to the North Carver project.
Yep.
If that comes through, and we have already, been in discussion about how you may need some more, how does that affect what you just talked about as far as, utilization of your existing facilities? Is that going to mean that it's going to have to even be expanded more?
Yeah, so that was something that was kind of, I hate to say it, in the presentation with Hillwood, it was kind of like I threw a bunch of stuff at them and expected to get told no. The fact that they didn't say no kind of shocked me.
Yeah.
So, which I probably should have added into, hey, I need a place. But the discussion has been that if there is a possibility that we get an additional ambulance out of the building, we just need a 3rd ambulance, is that 3rd ambulance will be by recall, by staff members coming in off shift to pick it up. And, for a temporary time period, we can store it at the fire station now, where, we can use one of the bays at the fire station and put it there. And then, have the staff have access to the station to take the truck out. And the truck will be put in a rotation like we do now. So right now, we rotate month by month, which truck goes out first, which truck goes out second. And if we get a 3rd vehicle, we'll put all 3 of them in the rotation. So 1 month, the 3rd truck will be parked at the station and maybe A1, A2, or A3 for the time period.
That's a ways down the road.
Right, exactly.
But
So,
it's something to be considered.
yes, yep. Saying, and let's say we may need that 3rd ambulance, we may not. We still have to take a look, see how it works out. But yeah, the project's looking at it, that it might be needed, so.
One other question, just, in the past, there's been a lot of talk about the opioid crisis. In terms of your responses, is that still a major part, or has that dropped off?
I'd say it's dropped off. We still, of course, are seeing it. It's still out there. It hasn't really gone away, but it's still out there. It's not. I think the issue that we ran into before was every time there was an opiate issue, people called 911, we came, whatever. I think those calls are down less because of the at-home Narcan distribution, so that people are seeing emergencies. They have the Narcan, the family members have it to keep people safe. They're giving the patient Narcan, the patient wakes up, and they don't call us, which, is good on the influx on calls, but at the same time, for patient safety, it's probably not the best thing, because Narcan is not a long-lasting solution. Depending on what they took, they could go back into an overdose moments later or minutes later. And if they don't have a second dose to give the patient, then that can be problematic. But yeah, the numbers aren't really as high as they were years ago. Years ago, we were reporting a lot. The numbers have come down, and they are staying down. And again, I think part of that has to do with our involvement. I mean, I don't think the opiate crisis is done. I still think it's being used. I just don't think we're getting called as often as we would because of people able to treat each other at home.
The only other point I'd make is that one of the only faults I found in your predecessor was that he didn't put a peak on the building that you occupy now, just aesthetically. So
Yep.
at some point in the future, if that opens up, Tom Walsh did a great job, but the absence of that peak just...
Well, there were budgetary restrictions, if you ask Tom. We've
I-
had many discussions about this.
believe me, he and I have gone back and forth on this, but again,
Yep.
that would be if you had frivolous money to spend.
Yep. So.
Can I just ask a question about the Narcan? Do you pay for the drugs? Where
Yes.
does that fall into the?
Nope, all the medications come out of the operating supplies
Okay.
subcategory underneath the operating account.
Okay.
All medications, and we do provide, we're in the process of reordering. We do provide 4 milligram pre-filled Narcan
Nasal spray.
one-time doses nasal route for our in-town staff. So
And
any
does-
members who live in town, they can have it on their person. That way, if they show up at a scene, they don't have to wait for the ambulance. They don't have to wait for whatever. And all of our law enforcement officers carry them as well. So there's no lack of Narcan being available when first responder units get on scene of these, which, that is the goal. The goal is to get the medication in quickly, use a bag valve mask device, which is a device we use to help ventilate the patients, and ventilate them until the medication kicks in and they wake up.
And do you get any free Narcan from the BI? in Plymouth? They don't communicate.
No, they make us
do
pay for it
anything?
because we're a public health organization. So I know there was some discussion at some time about, there's a Narcan policy out there where you can actually, after you resuscitate someone and you bring them to the hospital, you leave Narcan behind for the family to have. Our medical director said no. He said he doesn't want to do that. He says there's other ways that these families can get it, and that we really should be focused on giving them the Narcan and bringing them to the hospital. Because again, treating them at home is okay to save their lives, but when you don't call us after you treat them, it could cause a lot more complications after that.
We don't get free EpiPens either, huh?
No. Nope. And honestly, that's one of the big pushes why we changed to that BLS check and inject program, because the paramedics have been able to do it for years, and now having the BLS staff able to do it, we can create one of those check and inject kits for about $70. And getting those EpiPens are up around, I don't even want to guess now what they're up to. They were at $600 at one point. They're almost $800 a pen now.
Really?
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
And I know some hospitals do give out the free Narcan to the ambulances when they pull in.
Yep. So,
So show one of those hospitals?
Some do.
Anybody else? I'll take a motion on the emergency medical services budget.
I'll make a motion to recommend the EMS budget of $905,176.
second.
Motion made and seconded to recommend EMS's budget of $905,176. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
Good to go.
Would you like to break down the salary this time?
Dialogue one?
Would you like the breakdown of the salary?
Yes.
Took me a while to do that.
And we left you alone. We
I know.
didn't pick on you.
See?
Do you
Just want
want
to make sure it met everything.
No, I
No,
don't.
let's
And
just keep,
we are working on trying to get the other professional services,
more defined. Yep.
just to get some more transparency within that line.
Nope, that makes sense.
Was that vote including the frivolous monies line item?
Yeah, well,
Thanks, Mike. Thanks,
why
Michael.
we're trying to do away with the word other.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay. Mary, come on up. We'd like to talk with Recreation. I have to sincerely apologize. I sent out the original thing, and for some reason, I got housing on there, and then Bob Fennessy said, "You don't do housing." I said, "Yeah, I don't know what I was really thinking," and never gave recreation a thought, so please forgive me, because you know that that's not the case. You know that recreation is, I'm very much in favor of recreation.
Well, I'm actually a rookie at coming and presenting a budget, so bear with me. I don't have those fancy books that Mike did.
Yeah, you know, can you work on that, please?
She's got a
We can
small
take it out
budget.
of other professional services.
Thank you. We are a little budget. We do have, though, some of those other professional services.
I see that, and you have other purchase services. We're gonna
Yeah.
take both of those lines
But
next year.
But I think that's really salaries,
Well,
right?
no, separately.
Not really.
It came from many years ago when we had lifeguards at the beach, and so we had a salary line item.
Yeah.
But then if we ran a program, so we had to pay the person who presented the program for the kids. So it went under other professional services. But every administrator of the funds that we've had has a different philosophy on how you do that.
Okay.
We met, Rick, Sue and I, and Emily was there too, I think. Emily is our recreation coordinator. And we asked to go back under one number, one account number, include her salary.
Yeah.
We know what her salary is, it doesn't change. And everything else is just operations. We don't have any other salaries. If we are paying as a vendor, you know, it can go under that. There are times that it becomes more complicated than perhaps it needs to be, you know? But Sue had agreed that having fewer account numbers, you know,
Yeah.
to make sure that you paid something out of the right,
I guess I was confused. I thought we took something out of free cash for a salary last year and moved it up to salaries. That's why I'm confused. Sorry. It's probably just
we
me.
did, we did. But going
fixed it.
forward, we would like to have it all under one
Right.
thing.
Okay, so you're not gonna have a salary line item. You're just gonna have another professional service.
Right,
Okay.
it'll all be under one account number, and
Okay.
salary will be designated, and then we will monitor ourselves to make sure we don't spend out of either side. If that's, we just think it's simpler.
Yeah.
I think what we're really trying to ask you, and it's typical, is this enough? Can you do what you want to do? This is not a huge budget,
No, it's not.
and recreation is a huge part of this town.
We do have, what's not listed here is our revolving fund that we are working very hard at building up, and I believe we have 46,000 in that right now. And this week we had an elementary school cheer camp, and it was originally for 30 kids, limited. It ended up being 45. And so we have some of the high school cheerleaders working on their volunteer hours along with the coaches. And so it was really, really wonderfully successful. We currently have 14 programs set up, ready to go for the spring and summer. We did 12 outdoor things last year. You asked for our wish list? Well, unfortunately, I think Mike's going to be taking it. We were thinking of the fire station. It would be nice to have a designated place that we knew we had access
You're out,
to. To hold indoor things. You know, it's really difficult. The library is book solid. Since COVID, we really haven't had access to the schools, which I respect and understand, having worked there 30 years. They just try and limit the outside bodies being in there. So it would be really nice to be able to find a place somewhere in town that we could designate as a recreation space, so that if we wanted to have an indoor ceramics class, we could, you know? I don't know if that's in your capital outlay to build us a building. We'll take it. But that's our biggest wish list. We are about to purchase, I think it's going to be exciting for the town, one of the new portable ice skating rinks. And we thought about putting it over on Forest Street. And then we decided that since we have cameras and lights in the baseball field, we met with baseball last week, 2 weeks ago, when we had a meeting, and said that the company we were dealing with assures us that there will be no damage to the outfield. It'll go up and come down. We will take care of all that. So then on the weekends, we could have the lights on and families could go there at night. And it's another free event. So that's a large purchase that we're doing this year. We have, what did I want to tell you? That's our biggest goal, is to find a place so that we can continue to expand. It is difficult to try and to continue to expand if you don't know where you can have things. So it's limited to outside stuff.
I don't see why the fire station would be such a problem right this minute, because no matter what happens, there's not gonna be a third ambulance for a while to come yet. So we certainly could allow I don't see why, of course, it's not up to us, it's up to select board and the town.
Well, it is in the next month, our plan to meet with the select board and to have an honest, open discussion with them.
Yeah, there's no
to see.
reason it's sitting there.
We did use
I
it.
even questioned why at the last couple of snowstorms, we didn't move the Board of Health and the couple of vehicles inside the station to get them out of the snow. And it was just like, well, no one even thought of that.
The Gatra trucks are in there.
Yeah, but it's not full. There's still room.
It's pretty full.
So, when the nice weather's coming, the Gatra trucks don't have to be inside. They're only inside because of the cold weather. So in the nice weather, you could certainly use it for the rainy days and stuff, and then get together with some kind of a plan. I'd like to hear from, honestly and truly, I'd like to hear from two members here that are very involved in recreation, Jim and Adam. We're both very involved in recreation and baseball and so forth. Obviously allies. Jim, I think you're still involved in recreation, right?
No.
No? So what do you think? What do you think with this? And Adam, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll start by saying Mary's being modest. It is an underfunded department. She's not one to come in and ask for a lot of things. It's, the fact that they have as much money as they do in their revolving fund is a testament to a very small group of extremely dedicated people and the amount of work and effort that they put in. I mean, Mary quite literally has dedicated her life to recreation in this town, not just as a teacher in the school system for 30 years, like she said, but since I was a kid, has dedicated countless hours to recreation in this town. So that's why there's a revolving fund with $46,000 in it, is because of people like Mary.
Thank you.
But that's not enough to fund a recreation department the right way.
No.
I know personally, because of my involvement in recreation in the last, decade, that it's getting tougher and tougher to run these programs, and you need more and more people and more resources. And the youth sports programs in this town are suffering significantly because they can no longer recruit the people they need and the resources they need to run these programs and run them effectively. And so her job and the job of the recreation department is going to become tougher and tougher as time goes on. It's going to become a broader scope of work, I suspect, and their needs are going to increase. And as it is, they're not adequately funded. So it's something that we as a town should be cognizant of. I agree with Mary 1,000%. We need a community center space that recreation can utilize, as well as, council on aging and other departments, right? I mean, the youth leagues, for instance, when we need to run a draft or have some sort of meeting to discuss things as a large group, we do not have a facility that we can utilize for that, and we're using board members' barns and, begging for space at the library to try and get this stuff done, and we can't because we don't have a community space that we can utilize for recreation. So just, to sort of put a bow on it, it is an underfunded department. Mary will never come in here and ask for what she actually needs, but they need a lot more than they get on an annual basis.
But we're technically not even a department yet.
Which is also a travesty.
But baby steps. And I think in the last 4 years,
Baby stepping for 25 years, though.
I wish it was only
Time to grow
25.
up. Well, no, what I'm saying is, you know,
yeah.
this is not something that should be new to anybody. This is, you know, so maybe it's time that there be a subcommittee that starts to look into what we can do to move recreation into what it should be.
I think because the town never had a department, all of the sports, the youth sports, except for wrestling, I think we sponsor, they are all self-supporting. They contribute to a per person fee that goes into the O&M field for the field maintenance and stuff, which again is never enough either. But our goal has always been to try and make it as affordable as possible, and it's worked. But it'll only work for so long, you know. I don't think we are ready to take over all the town sports, but it might be a wise thing to look into taking over one at a time, because if it becomes a department, then you're assigning the fields, which we do. They have to come to us for the fields anyway, and involving with the high school and everything. It's just, I'm not sure where it would begin, and I don't think it's in our budget. It's certainly not in our budget, but I don't know when it would be in the town's budget to take over those kinds of things.
So there's if I can say something, there's been
Sure.
a lot of inconsistencies in field usage, fees, who's taking care of what, to the point where the high school is renting out their fields to AAU teams, but not taking that money for the fees and using it towards the fields, using it somewhere else. So then you have all these teams coming in and playing, they're ruining the fields. Then the high school team wants to play, and you have players and coaches out there raking the fields and trying to get everything done because there's no money. So there's a lot, I think the inconsistency comes because there is no centralized department. You know, you have personalities that come in. I mean, I was the president of baseball for a couple years. Adams was, Carl Miller was. Everybody has their own thoughts and philosophies, right? But there's never like a ground rules for this to happen. So I think over
You're right.
the years, and you know, your husband was part of baseball, and so you have all these different things happening, and it's just not consistent. It changes every you know, my opinion one year is what we do, but then it's his opinion. It could be totally different. So I think having a rec committee that oversees everything and kind of has the foundation for, you know, consistency and the right thing to do, and making sure that any funds that are collected go to the right place, and not what I think, but it's uniform, it's spelled out, and we have, you know, bylaws or whatever, you know, rules and regulations, that's probably the only way that it's going to get done consistently over 25 years, you know. Think how many people have been the president of the baseball league for 25 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So.
And I think what Tony's saying is right too, because I was involved in recreation for a long time, and the reason I said no is I stepped down recently with being a selectman and all that. But I was in recreation 20 years ago, and our only program was swimming. And then we've gone so far from swimming to now all the activities that they've done. But one of the things I think that we have done, it's slowly building up. Hired Emily, how many, was it 3 years ago now?
Yeah, I think this
So-
is
so
her
the
fourth
director,
year, I think.
Where before, it was Mary and whatever else volunteers, mainly Mary, who's running everything. Now Emily does that, and we got the salary for that. So that was the first step. We always had that five-year plan.
Mm-hmm.
Then town administrators changed. So, you know, the school, we had little disagreements with the school on how to do things.
Yeah.
We straightened that out now. So there was a plan. It's just now I think it's time to take that next step, like you said. But, I mean, the amount of programs that they're doing now is great. It's unbelievable with such a small budget. And everything sells out. All the programs fill up quick.
And I do think partially they sell out because we're basically, depending on the cost of the program, we're only charging that recreation would get $5 a head or sometimes $10 a head. So it's way cheaper than Plymouth or any of the other
Right.
places. So, especially if you have a limited number, we've been very fortunate. They sell out. We haven't had to cancel anything in a very long time.
So I think the one concern that I think we all have to, the town, is when the youth sports do start to decline, and is it time for recreation to take over? Because you see, like, I know baseball last year had some problems, and now basketball, and it's like, you know, we don't want the youth sports to go away, but it's just tougher to find volunteers, and I think the rec department, I mean, the committee's full again, which is good.
We do
full
have one
committee.
opening, if anyone's
Oh, one opening,
interested.
Okay. But again, it's definitely
Yeah.
something, food for thought, and we all talked about the ambulance, the old fire station, as well as the old police station as another option. So we had kind of had those thoughts in our.
We did use it in October for the haunted fire station,
Yep.
which was a hugely successful event. And it funded all of the uniforms for the high school wrestling and the youth program. They raised a lot of money. The two people that ran it for us, Nikki and her husband, he's the varsity coach and runs the youth program for us. And they took no money for any of it. And it just was wonderful, and we would like to do it again next year. We do have to, perhaps Recreation will purchase some fire retardant things so that, it's wonderful when you do something in town that the fire department and the police department just pitch in and help in any way. We had a couple of nights where we just had such a huge crowd, and we didn't ask for a detail, but there was someone there. And fire guys were there. We didn't have anything, there was no lit anything inside the building, but you just don't know. You got people going through in the dark, someone going to try and be funny. And so they had extinguishers with them. Some of them even became part of the scary scene, just so they were hidden and no children would get scared by seeing a fireman present. But I think that's one of the most gratifying things of being in the position I am in and having lived here as long as I have. And that hopefully never changes in town. You know, the dedication of all the departments trying to come together, and citizens who are able to volunteer and choose to. But it's getting harder to find volunteers.
I think the most important thing that I've heard tonight, for me personally, and I think we talked about this a couple of years ago on FinCom when Mr. Hoffman said we should look at the next step, start moving on our plan. I think there was discussion about doing that a couple of years ago, that it was time to start doing that. And then for some reason we didn't.
Yeah.
And then the cameras took over at the playground, and that became a 6-month gestation. And I'm glad that happened. But I couldn't agree more. I think that the recreation, just for how successful the Halloween thing was. We
Yes.
have buildings here. We have available space. And there's nothing that will pull a town together faster in a difficult time, coming out of COVID and coming out of,
Yes.
than recreation. And springtime is coming, and we got a little taste of it 2 days ago, because now it's snowing, but this is where we live. And I think that we really, as a town, and we say this every year in FinCom, and I think we said it last year and the year before that we've asked Mary, is this enough money? And we think that you are woefully underfunded. And then the following year, the numbers are the same, and the wish list is the same, and everybody's hoping and praying for a miracle. But we're the ones that can make that happen. We can put money in these accounts. We just saved $110,000 on the capital outlay. I'd like nothing better than to have Recreation come up with an additional plan that you'd like to do something.
Okay.
Pick something. You gotta be quick.
Yeah.
Who's footing the bill for the ice rink? Where's this coming from? Is this already in capital?
For the what?
Your ice skating thing you wanna do for next year, is that?
Where we're using our budget.
They use the revolving fund.
Yeah, so is that, why can't that be in a different, why take it out of the revolving fund? Why can't the town
Oh, it's not gonna
support
come out,
this?
no, it's coming out of our operating budget.
It's out of our funds here? It's out of your budget?
So
And find something else.
I just want to make sure, just because I'm a numbers person. So you see a big jump this year. So we're not going to borrow any money from, or take any money from free cash, right? For
Right.
FY23, everything's going to be in the operating budget.
Right.
Okay.
So
'Cause this will
what
be the
used
first
to
year.
be
Right.
22 and change, whatever, and then ours for years was 10,000, and then it went up to 20,000, and so basically now it is, it's like almost 25,
Yep.
which,
Right.
I mean,
It
that's
was one
Christmas.
of those things that
We're flopping it, that's
Well,
why I'm.
it was one of those deals where we had to
Now it's
pay
both
it,
in.
Now we
and,
put them all in the
and
budget.
Yeah.
this is where it decided, and it wasn't, it was two previous town administrators ago, another one of those, I know where we'll get this, and we'll just take it from, one
Yeah.
of these other purchase services lines and out of that slush fund, and that's how it happened, and now it's just trying to bring it forward to have the transparency of it and have it be, for real. Similar to what we did with the health agent, where, some of his salary was coming out of additional hours, because it had to, because it wasn't in his budget. But this year now, it's in his budget, so. So, find another pet project,
okay.
seriously.
Well, and as I said, having also lived here for so many years, I know that, there's not a lot of additional funds laying around. There's-
Well, we're not
Do you have a
flat
pile
broke
over there?
either. We're not, we're not flat broke.
It's about priorities, really.
That's exactly
Right? And
correct.
And certain things need to be prioritized, and sometimes you have to reevaluate what your priorities are and reallocate things based on those priorities.
That's right.
And for me, I think recreation is something that has, because of the volunteers over the last, 40, 50 years, it's been something that was handled in that fashion. But like most communities around us, towns have seen a bigger demand on recreation, and they have their own recreation departments with a full-time recreation coordinator, and, sometimes it's lumped in with the school, with the athletic department and the athletic director. Sometimes it's entirely separate, but most towns have a very well-established recreation department with a budget significantly higher than ours. It's about priorities, and I think recreation should be a priority in this town.
Thank you for that support.
Andy, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just a couple of things I've heard here.
Vinnie, can you grab the mic?
Thank you. I get to use it now? Thanks, Mayor. I'm a big supporter of recreation as well, and I applaud you. I've seen you forever. You're a fixture here, obviously, and I applaud the job you do for the town. But for those of you who don't know me, I'm the representative from the school committee on the capital outlay, okay? And the comments I've heard here from you two gentlemen, and I totally understand about the fields. We voted, and Jim and I have had these conversations when the fee structure was going in. And these fees that were put out to be paid, they were put in front of us as being paid so we'd have money to maintain the fields. And that includes the turf field, obviously, that we have to, rehab in so many years.
That's in a separate account, though.
Right, but, the turf field is, you're right.
Turf field is a separate account.
But
We
the.
have nothing to do with it.
No, not you,
The
not
school
you.
does, yeah.
But this is two separate things. But if the fields are in a bad condition or something like that, now this would be news to me because like two brand new fields over at the elementary school that we actually had to wait in an extra year to have it grow in so it could be used because it wasn't taking. If these fields are becoming unusable or shabby or something like that, we need people to contact the school committee, the members, and alert us. I mean, yes, put your calls in to the administrator and ask him what's going on. This is the first I've heard of them being in bad shape since they've been done over. But that's what I would say for that, is get in contact with one of your school committee members, and, I mean, they're the ones that control the votes on these things and prioritize what goes on on the agenda and what gets voted in or what doesn't get voted in. The other thing is, Mary, you mentioned about the schools not having space and the COVID restrictions. When's the last time you talked to anybody over there about booking a room or an activity space?
Well, we're using the elementary school this week.
Okay,
I believe we're at the high school this week
right.
with the cheer program. But
Okay.
prior to that, I think it was December.
Mostly because of COVID?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we just voted to have the masks taken out on February 28th
Right.
for all school buildings. So and I know the state itself is coming down and they're loosening the COVID restrictions themselves. The state is. DESI already has by the 28th. But I would implore you to go back and have another call with Scott Neef.
Mhm.
And I will put the bug in his ear as well that you're looking for spaces. Just to tell him you're having a hard time. So maybe you guys can talk.
Well,
about it.
originally, actually, when YPAC folded,
Yeah.
we had that large room. I was part of YPAC too.
Yeah,
Just
of
a
course.
different hat. But, so we had that room, and it was
What a shame
originally,
that folded.
we thought, we met with Scott and said, could we turn this into a recreation space?
Mm,
That it would no longer be a classroom,
Right.
and it would be just an easy space for us to store things, to offer programs, and it would be ours. And that was agreed to, but unfortunately, they needed it for a different program
Mm,
the following September.
Okay.
So we never got to really use it.
Yeah.
But again, I work the school system. I know
Yeah.
how crowded they get.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and one year is very different from another, so I understand all that.
We'll be the squeaky wheel.
Yeah.
And I'll be an advocate for you for as well. No. And the one other thing I wanted to mention about space, Adam, you mentioned about having trouble finding regular meeting space. When the police station and the fire station were proposed at town meeting and we voted on it all, one of the things they said for both of those new buildings was these places can also be used for community uses. So, I mean, I know the police station has that room in the front, that big, long meeting room.
Which is out of the whole locked-in area.
Yes.
So that can definitely be a community space.
Yeah, and the fire station has the rooms on the side, I
That's
think,
right.
in the back. And even the old fire station has the kitchen and the meeting rooms upstairs. So, I mean, I don't know maybe that's something that the select board could talk about making it accessible, those
I
buildings
think it's the chiefs
accessible.
would have to weigh in on that also.
Oh, yeah, of course. Right. I mean,
Yeah,
I just wanted to throw it out there.
And they have audio visual in the room, so.
Yeah.
You got a couple of locations, and the police station makes perfect sense because go in the main front doors and you hang a left and you're in that new room. So you're not in the station, you know?
They have a roll-down screen, too. I think, I spoke to the
Yeah.
chief one time when he first showed it to me, and I said, this would be a great place for like a movie night. You
Yeah.
know, but-
In December, we had mostly adult Christmas wreath decorating, 2-night event downstairs in room 4. Everything was locked up. It was ours for 2 nights. I'm not sure how thrilled the people who work in this building were that, if that's where they choose to go have lunch or go chit
Yeah,
chat or
lunch
whatever.
right up
It was
there.
locked up for recreation, and I felt really badly about that. But sometimes if you're doing something that's more than one night, it's really tough to lug everything in, bring it back out, lug it back in.
No, that's why it'd be great to
Yeah.
be able to use the old fire station, something like that,
Yeah.
a building that's not being used much.
Mhm.
So.
Well, as I said, we're hopefully gonna be on the docket very soon for select board. And, we don't necessarily expect a decision that night, but to just start the conversation about where can we grow? Go and grow kind of thing.
This was a good night for you to be delayed to come to this meeting tonight because we
appreciate
had
it.
capital outlay. And within capital outlay, we had Andy from the school, we have Jim from the select board. So combined with
Yeah,
this group here, this is not falling on deaf ears by any means.
Yeah. The Council on Aging building, too, I don't know how much that's being used now, but
It's being used, but
maybe for like a day event, maybe.
you
or
could do a
something.
day event
Yeah.
there.
I mean, it would be nice for rec to have a rec center, right, their own.
Sure
Yeah,
would
of
be.
course.
I mean, in
That's
the
the
perfect
ultimate goal.
world, we'd have a brand-new council on aging building community center. All we need is about another $28 million.
Yeah.
That's what that's what Situate just built. They built a beautiful place. It's a community center and the Council on Aging.
Mary has it, tell her to open up her pocket.
Thought she was gonna go see you, to tell you the truth.
Not until we get.
So the budget that we're requesting is what kind of totaled up was 47,620. And I am really happy to absorb the other professional services or purchase services into if that's okay with you, sir.
Why would you absorb that? What do you
Well, I
mean?
don't mean get rid of it, I mean just put it
Into one line item.
on just under operating budget.
Yeah, yours is pretty small. It's $2,600. It's part of, it's less than
Yeah.
5% of your, or it's roughly 5% of your total budget, right? It's not,
Yeah.
it's not,
Well, it's just tricky to figure out what do you have to, which one of those things goes under that,
yeah.
But we do whatever way we want to do it. We certainly will, we'll work with you. We will be having our egg hunt again this year. And we try to do 4 annual free events. The egg hunt, we've always done something for Halloween for the community. And this summer, COVID hit, we had ice cream Sunday gathering all lined up, and do you remember, Jim? And, that got postponed. But the other thing is we've done for the last 2 years is the gingerbread house giveaway. And the only thing that any community person didn't have to do, but it was requested, if they could bring a food item or a cash donation or a check donation to Shane Gives Thanks. And so we give out the gingerbread houses right in front of the food pantry there. And they could go to any store and pick up one of these gingerbread kits for $10. And it's most of the people brought like $30, $40 worth of food or put cash in, and it's just been really a wonderful event.
Really a great
situation. It's been great.
Was that the time you had the craft fair with the booths when it was 14 degrees out in the parking lot? Is that the same time? Did I remember seeing gingerbread houses then?
Yeah, they were there, but that
Yeah.
was Mary's Recreation Department came and they did their thing, and one of the requirements was that they bring something for the pantry.
Nice.
And it was very successful. There was a very large crowd and so a lot of people got informed about both situations.
Right.
Yes. It is interesting that so many people are unaware of some of the things that are available in this town.
Yes. We still have people in town that don't know there's a food pantry there.
Right.
There are still people that don't know there's a new police station.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Now I get it. Does anyone have any questions?
I still think the 47,620 is the biggest bargain on the face of the planet for this, but I really am serious when I tell you that I want to see us really start to look at some serious ways to put together
I
a
absolutely
better
support that.
recreation department. I think it's time. I really, truly do. I think if nothing taught us this last year of shutdowns, when something like this would be more necessary than ever.
Absolutely, yeah.
I just think going forward, I think it's something that we should really focus on.
That's always been my goal. That's what keeps me doing this. I mean, when we started the ski program back in 1980, we're still doing stuff. It's rewarding to see the families involved. And as Adam said,
And I think as the program grows a little bit bigger and gets a little bit more exciting, that'll promote more people wanting to get involved, which makes it grow bigger, and then means more people want to get involved, so it kind of begins a cycle.
hopefully.
You know? Anybody else? I'll take a motion.
Okay, I make a motion to recommend the Recreation Department budget for $47,620.
Second?
Third, fourth. Motion made and seconded to recommend to the select board the recreation budget of $47,620. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Sorry to keep you so long, but I'm really kind of glad that we skipped you last week.
Yeah,
I think you got more mileage out of tonight.
I did, thank you. I hope I made sense.
No, you always do. Thank you so much for what you do, I really mean it.
Thank you, everyone. You're all volunteers too.
Yeah, you do. Thanks, Mayor.
Take care.
Too.
All right. I happen, again, with the indulgence of the Capital Outlay Committee, can you give me a few more minutes? I see that Mr. Bott came in from planning, and that was tabled 2 meetings ago, I think at your request, Aaron. So I'm going to just give it to you. You had some questions?
Well, I think our questions stemmed from the discussion about the
I'm
permanent.
sorry, Mr. Bott, come on up and have a seat. For those of you who haven't had the pleasure, this is Tom Bott. He is our
interim town planner.
I wasn't sure if you were the permanent guy yet or not, so that's why I hesitated for a moment. Tom's got a lot of years from Kingston.
Correct. I live in Plymouth. I've been your professional neighbor for 20 years, your personal neighbor for 24. So, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in. We needed that position, and we needed someone that knew what they were doing, especially
Well,
going through what we're going
the
through
jury's
right
out
now.
on whatever I know I'm doing.
Wow.
Okay, so
I tried.
let's not jump the gun.
Listen, Bob gave me a couple of dollars to say a good word for you. Now I'm gonna have to give it back.
If I remember correctly, I think the question stemmed from a discussion about the permitting software, correct?
I think it did, but I think that, well, maybe you can enlighten too, but from what I've gathered now, Bob Fennessy came and told me, I think it was last week, so forgive me if I didn't bring it up, I was waiting for planning. Apparently, he looked at the contract, and we're on the hook for 3 years, period. If we light a match to it, doesn't matter, we're on the hook for 3, we gotta write a check. So I believe we gotta write 2 more checks of $20,000 apiece?
Something to that extent. So I noticed in the budget a significant jump from one year to the other, $23,350 in other purchase services, and I'm assuming that's the money for the e-permitting software.
Another one of those funny line items that you can really not tell what it's all about, but that's, yeah, that's what it is.
And so it's your understanding that, this was purchased this past year, right? It's your understanding that we are on a 3-year contract, right? Because at our last meeting, what we were discussing
Yeah,
was
that's what he
removing the $24,000 from the budget, just not funding it. And part of the reason why I said let's hold on, it's because that was my concern, is
Yeah.
that we were under some sort of contract or
Yes.
obligation to pay for that.
That's
for
what I
that.
understand. Yes, correct.
So is it your expectation then that the department will continue to use the software since we're paying for it, or?
Well,
No.
so we had a meeting, and I brought the people who knew what they were doing. The people who were actually giving out the permits to staff. And the gist is that the e-permitting software that the town acquired wasn't particularly well rolled out as far as its applicability and training and things like that. It was the considered opinion of the building commissioner that the town didn't quite have the volume of permits really to justify that cost. And I think the genesis of the whole software thing was during COVID, people can't come in the building, so let's get a thing to make it easy e-permitting wise. Now, I went through something very similar in Falmouth where I just left, where we've been working with a permitting company for probably a year and a half. And it's been very extensive in weekly meetings with various departments on rolling out the permitting software and how that's going to work, and people developing modules. But it doesn't appear that's been the experience in Falmouth. It looks like you bought something and they thought, well, this should be fine, and somebody went through a PowerPoint presentation and said, click on these buttons and everything should be fine. And I think it's the considered opinion of the people who've been here and have been using it that the software training that came with it wasn't adequate. And the use of it wouldn't really be particularly applicable to the town for the volume of permits that we're doing and the type of work that we're doing, based on a meeting I've been to. Keep in mind, I got here a few weeks ago.
And it does an interface with assessing. It does, from what Paul Boucher, the current building commissioner, told me when he sent me that email that I read at the last meeting, he said there's a checklist to a permit. And within that checklist is, you know, have you checked with assessing, have you checked with the tax collector, have you checked with the fire department sign off on it, did planning get involved, did conservation get involved, did ZBA get involved, and then we go down the checklist. And he said, this software doesn't interface anywhere with any of this, so you still have to take, they can do the software online, you know, the application, but now you still have to go to the individual departments and get them to sign off on it. And the way the state law reads, this was really brought in under the pretense of COVID and, you know, because town halls are closed. But it will never eliminate paper. You get a builder that wants to come in here and do a handwritten permit application, and the town has got to take that application. They can't say, no, you have to go home and do it online. Then the grand finale, I think, for me, was when we found out that the current credit card system that we use downstairs will not interface with this thing either. So now we have to go to a whole new credit card company, change over the whole software setup in order to make this software accept a payment through the credit system. So it just got worse and worse and worse, and that's what prompted me to ask, well, why can't we just stop? And then that's what caused Bob to go look and see that it has we have a 3-year contract, and I think my attitude became, well, it's going to be a 3-year lesson in what not to do the next time, because there's going to be updates and ongoing contracts and modules and upgrades in perpetuity. So, you know, do we just bite the bullet now and say, stop?
And if it's any solace, I understand an initial part of the funding was through some COVID funding as well.
Yeah, there was some COVID
So the town
funding.
hasn't bitten the bullet for the entire cost.
So we haven't bit the bullet for anything yet, because I think there's a bill currently due. So we're gonna, you know, have to pay that one, and we got one more to pay. Mr. Clark.
Have you had a chance to sit down with the vendor face-to-face and present them with all these concerns?
No.
To give them a chance to, I mean, this is what we're hearing from our staff as issues. I think if we're on the hook for it, it should be worth inviting the vendor in, having the staff there, present all these issues, just in case they do have solutions that they can apply. If we're on the hook for another 40 grand for the next 2 years, we should at least make the effort to make sure that what we're hearing is 100% correct.
Well, maybe we ought to look into whether we were sold a pig in a poke.
Well, I was gonna say, maybe there was misrepresentation of what we bought, and maybe we talk to legal and say, do we have something to stand on for not paying the next 2 payments? I don't know that. We'd have to look at the contract.
Well, and I know that sometimes I've met developers who'd much rather, you know, spend $50,000 for an attorney than make a $5,000 engineering fix.
Correct.
So it may be that the cost of going to council and trying to, you know, get out of a contract is going to be equivalent to, you know, what you're paying for something. But I think it's fine to talk to the vendor. Like I said, I've been here a short few weeks and have been sort of busy with some stuff, and this hasn't sort of come up.
But there is
Way down.
There is a current structure to do permitting without this software.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
and
And
it's
it works.
sufficient. It's sufficient.
Right.
So there's
According
no
to Paul-
enhancements.
according to the
So
building commissioner, he said it's fine.
anecdotally, the stories that I've heard about this just differ wildly from the experience I had in Falmouth, where different company, Permitize, but we spent, you know, an amazing amount of time on the rollout and creating modules and that interaction. There actually was in that case an issue with the compatibility of the permitting software and the folks who were doing invoices as well. And that was just because the invoice company was missing. I just couldn't get a hold of them because everybody was working in a bunker somewhere. But anyhow, no, I haven't had any conversations with the vendor. But the people who have been here and have been doing this, anecdotally, they said, you know, this thing was not particularly well rolled out and not particularly useful for our purposes. And to what extent would they be if they were? Maybe they would, but I don't know.
I just think for 40 grand, it's worth having a face-to-face and just confirming all the points that have been made by staff, just in case there is a fix. Because normally, since municipalities all run differently, the software should be adaptable to some extent to adapt to the way various
Nobody
towns
in
do
the
business.
area uses it. That much I do know. Nobody likes it, nobody uses it, nobody
I'm just
wanted
saying,
it.
as part of the checklist, we should make sure that what we're hearing is accurate.
Yeah, for the FinCom's purposes, talk is cheap. I'm happy to,
Okay, thank you.
talk to them.
I have, I'll reread the email I got from Paul Boucher, the building commissioner. Alan, I don't think we issue enough permits on a daily basis to use an e-permitting system. I was told by a state inspector that we cannot refuse a paper application. The town could lose revenue from permits not getting pulled due to the applicant not having computer knowledge. I'm told that the people who wanted this program are no longer working for the town. I think the town should scrap this project and use this money where it is needed. So obviously, we can't scrap it and not pay the bill, but.
Right, and other communities are using e-bill services, so.
No, they are, but they're not, this particular software
Right.
is unique, and literally nobody in the area is using it.
All I'm saying is we should make sure that what we're hearing is accurate at the cost of 40 grand.
I just don't want to see us be forced to pay the 40 grand and then be forced to pay another 100 grand behind that to make it work. That's all. That's my concern. There comes a point where you have to just stop the hemorrhage.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
I'll be happy to circle around about Fantasy and set up some conversation with them.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Are we prepared to approve their budget as presented? I'll take a motion if we are.
Okay, I'll make a motion to recommend to the select board the total planning board budget for FY '23 in the amount of $196,891.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. That's the correct total number?
It is for the planning board. There's conservation and zoning we haven't done yet. We could take those separate or all at once, I guess.
Yeah, let's do them
So
separate,
when-
because I will abstain from conservation.
Okay.
So the motion made and seconded for the planning board's budget to be recommended of $196,891. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. I'll take a motion on the plan, we have to do the zoning board?
The zoning's on here.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to recommend to the select board the zoning board budget for the FY '23 for $1,800.
Second?
Motion made and seconded for the zoning budget to be recommended of $1,800. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Conservation?
I'll make a motion to recommend to the select board the total conservation budget for FY '23 for $57,411.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to recommend the conservation budget of $57,411. Any further discussion? I will disclose that I'm a member of the Conservation Commission. I will be abstaining. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And one abstention. Okay.
Thank you for coming.
All right, thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Enjoy.
Tom.
Don't stay
Appreciate
too
it.
late, it's gonna snow. If you're here after midnight, it's gonna be dark and
Well,
snow.
the shelter will be open. We'll be all set. Thank you very much for coming. I know we threw you under the bus,
You
because,
know it's not you.
and we're well aware that we really appreciate the work you're doing. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Have a good night. Go right home now. Okay, and we're not gonna have a computer tech. We're talking about having that discussion next Monday when we meet with the school. So I really want to drill down, I agree with Adam on this one. We need to drill down on this computer stuff. Find out who's paying for what, what's being divvied up. I think that whole discussion is way too broad, and we're just not, we're kept in the dark somewhat on this IT stuff, so.
So I got a question, because I think I saw a little bit last time they were here. They were very vague, and they weren't prepared to answer our questions. Do we give them, is there any, hey, you need to come in, when you come in, we're gonna be asking you these questions, we need the answers to them? Or they're gonna do the same thing again?
The school?
Yeah, the school and tech together, right?
I
In other
think,
words, when the bills weren't paid for
toner.
When she came in asking.
Oh,
for
that was
money-
because there was some confusion on the who's and the whats and the whens and the wheres, and it was not the crisis that it was thought to be at that particular moment in time.
But I'm just thinking,
And our
like,
current finance director straightened the mess out pretty quick
I
without the
just
need
wanna
for
make
it.
sure we ask questions, we get answers, and
Yeah.
not the vagueness,
I
that's
think
all.
we'll be satisfied with what we get this time. I really think that we'll be okay. So with that, and I gotta thank you guys so much for allowing us to do all this and take the time of the capital outlay. So Beth, I'll turn it to you, and you can present your capital outlay budget. And again, thank you for your patience.
Sure. So I just wanted to first introduce everybody on the capital outlay, and first off say how much of a great job everyone did. This is the first year for any of us on capital outlay, and we haven't had a capital outlay committee in a while, so I just want to thank everybody. It was brand new to all of us. So we have Andy Cartarelli from the school committee. We have Jim Hoffman from the select board, and Marie Zwegman, who's a member and used to be on the finance committee. I think we all know Marie. So Sue does have some handouts for us tonight to look at, just to start off with.
You already have this one.
So I just wanted to tell you how we started before we dig into all of this. The first night we met, we had the request from the town, and they were over $6 million. It was $6.8 million. So we went through it, found some issues in there where things were double counted. Close to the end when we were meeting, we had kind of chipped away at that and met with all the departments and had a budget that night for capital outlay of $2.6 million. However, that night when we first met, we thought we only had $1.7 million to work with in the budget. After Sue went through the free cash, we did find out that the total budget we have for capital this year was $2,117,483. So just so everybody's aware, that's how much money we have for FY23 to purchase capital expenses. So what we did, so again, we're on the big sheet, it's the green column. The way this sheet works, and this isn't from me, this is just the history of the town. Any number on this column that has a letter at the end of it, so for example, if it says like 1.6 million bond, that total does not flow to the bottom. If there's an M or a K at the end of a number, that doesn't total to the bottom either. And the reason for that is because it's coming from a different funding source than this 2.1 million. Just so I wanted to make sure you understood. So that's the big sheet. This sheet is sort of my version of that sheet where it's only FY23, and you can see what we were focusing on. So what we voted on in our last meeting is in yellow, just so you have that. I think it's a little easy to read, but if you want to see the full 5 years going out, that's what you're going to use, the sheet with the green and yellow on it. So the only caveat tonight that does change on this sheet is that O&M would be removing the $110,000 in their budget of capital, which is to replace the one-ton dump truck, number 696. So that would be coming out.
So let me ask this question, where does that money go at that point? It just reduces the capital plan by $100,000, so it really comes down to
So we
312 or 302?
No, it's gonna add to it. So we actually have a surplus of money in the capital that we did not use because certain items would be coming out for bonding. However, there wasn't enough in that surplus at the bottom to cover the bonding items.
Okay.
So if we go down the sheet, you have O&M. So they have currently $360,000 they've requested, but it's gonna go down to $250,000 once you remove that $110,000. The next one is the North Carver Water District. That's mostly on there for everyone to see. However, it's not coming out of this balance. So they have $190,000 for service to their well and infrastructure. They will handle that amount of money. The next one, we come down to EMS, which Mike spoke about tonight, and that's the $260,000. Again, there's a K at the end of it, so that means it's not coming out of this balance pot of money, but it is there for you to know about. So then we come down to the fire department. They have asked for a total of $387,000. Craig did tell me that he was okay if he initially had the $175 for the first rehab of a brush breaker. He was okay with pushing that out to the future year if there wasn't enough money, but there was enough money, so we kept it in here. If we need to, he is okay to push that out to FY24. But the rest of it, he does need, which is the Jaws of Life that were on the budget for last year that we told him we would bring to fall meeting, and we didn't have a fall meeting. That's for $127,000. And the second thing he had was replace his Command Car 2 for $85,000.
Deputy Germain's car, for anybody who's curious.
Yeah. I did try to put some notes from our meeting off to the right, so you can see for that particular car, it's 10 years old with over 100,000 miles. They would not be getting rid of that car, they would be repurposing it for something else on the fire department.
I think they get rid of the one that they got rid of the first time when they bought these. It's this one in service that they're using as a backup or something, and that's on its way out. So this would become that, and that would go to wherever they go.
So the next one was the total police department. They have $118,100. So they would be replacing 2 cars for $110,000. It's a Crown Victoria and a 2011 Ford Explorer. They also have on here the defibrillators for 4 of them, which they believe they're going to get a grant for. And I was told even though these are under $10,000, we would still keep them on here. It's
And
still
the grant's only to cover one of those.
one, yeah, like $2,000. They had removed the body cameras, just so everyone knows that they're no longer going to purchase those. They're going to be a lease program now. And with that, it will come out of their operating expenses. And that is in the budget that we approved last week. So for townwide technology, we do have this first one, the $598,000. That's for the townwide radio infrastructure. I believe we're in year 2. So this is something that I do feel like has to happen this year, but it's going to be on the list to be bonded. If we chose not to do that, we would have to cut something else out of here because we only have, let's see, we had 412, now we have 1. We currently have a surplus of $522,000. The other thing that they're looking for, which came from Ron and Scott Neve, I did try to put on the left-hand side who presented these items and who was the owner of it, so that helps. The town-wide, that's all, that's fire, police, EMS, but the rest of it's mostly under the school as far as Ron and Scott oversee these items. So the next one, it's $56,000 for a total town-wide technology. If you go down further on the list, they've pushed off, they have grants coming in for student devices for $100,000 that they will be purchasing, but there's a grant to cover that. And then the technology for the elementary schools, $68,750, and the technology for the middle high school is going to be $48,000. They also have, if you go down to the next one, the district-wide curriculum upgrade for $130,000. And then if you go to the next one, they also have a bus they need to replace as well. Yeah, as well as a 32-passenger wheelchair bus. So the buses, we've been told they buy those annually to keep the stock rotating. As far as the 32-passenger wheelchair bus, they said this is an older bus and it needs a lot of maintenance. If you guys have anything also to add to these,
And
feel
just,
free.
if I may, Madam Chair,
Yes.
2 years ago, I stood up at town meeting and flipped out over the cost of a bus at $73,000. So this shows you where the numbers have gone in just 2 years. The cost of a bus has gone up $30,000. And I still have an issue with school buses. I don't think we put enough miles on them. I don't think they need to be replaced one, then two, then one, then two, and so on and so on and so on. I appreciate the fact that they have this long-term plan, but when I see our old sold school buses that are, they've taken the name Carver off of them, but they still say Carver because that's where the clean yellow paint is, getting on the highway with busloads of kids for some private organization that bought the buses, I have to wonder, why are we buying buses like this?
Well, we can ask them when they come in, but I believe that the state inspections require that they only go to be used for a public school. They have limits that are set.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Well, you would know, Pat, better than I would.
There's no yearly or mileage limit on it.
Thank you. I don't think there is either.
It's safety requirements.
Right.
That do it. And there is a, there is kind of an ongoing like replacement program as I remember it. Probably I created it at one time.
Sorry.
I forget about what a bus costs these days, but haven't bought one in a while.
$103,000 for a bus.
Yeah, they go up, but it's still.
Andy's gonna get mad at me next.
No.
It's still a very effective, a very cost-effective way to transport the kids.
Are we convinced honestly that this is, that First Student couldn't do this and get us off the hook for a lot of stuff?
We've done
Almost the lowest transportation cost in the state of Massachusetts.
You keep telling me that. I've never seen.
Look it up
numbers to back
online, it's
any of that.
online.
I used to do it all the
Steve
time.
Pratt used to present it to us every year.
Okay.
John Carter requested it for the Finance Committee one year, and we actually did an analysis of it. I think I was on the FinCom at that time. And they come, because I had the same questions, being on FinCom, and it came out that it was cheaper to run your own system.
Yes.
The only issue, you have the employee costs and stuff like that, of course, but it was cheaper in the long run to have your own system. On the buses, on the inspection part, really the only thing about it is that they have to pass a DOT inspection for school buses every year. Not just like a regular truck inspection.
Three times a year. It
Oh, was it? That was just once.
It used to be 5.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
It used to be 5. The state police used to come over to the bus garage 5 times a year and inspect every bus. Then that changed to 3 times a year. This is right down to a light bulb.
Well, I agree. I understand.
A little light bulb, and.
But we're not running buses that have 200,000 miles on them either. You know what I mean? We're running buses that have not a lot of miles on them. I know that a couple of years ago, it was $420 a day per bus was what it cost the town to operate a bus. And it just begged the question of, should we be in the bus business anymore? Have we reached the point now where?
And you got another situation that I always used to talk about. A real intangible was that you're hiring most of your bus drivers live in town. Most of them have driven for a long time. They know the kids know them. And I think these days, and especially, even when I was back there, it was very important. Safety, security measures, and I used to have the same feelings about custodial services too. When they started to talk about outsourcing those, I'm never in favor of it. Still, I'm not. And those are big reasons. Most of the custodians live in town. We know them, they know the kids. And that's something you're not going to get by outsourcing.
I gotta tell you the truth, Pat, I never thought of it from that angle. I never did.
Well, it's true.
Especially these days.
It's true, the times that we have done analysis on it, the first thing you hear is from the parents, saying, you're not gonna fire all the bus drivers, are you? So, it's the first thing you hear.
I never thought of it from that angle.
When
I
I
didn't
did
know my
this,
bus driver.
I would do a cost analysis every year. Even those years we didn't get any buses. And then I would do a cost analysis every single year, because all school departments have to provide what's called an end-of-the-year report to the Department of Ed. And that includes your cost of transportation. And they publish those. And they publish it by a per pupil cost, just like they do with a lot of other criteria they put out at the end of the year statewide, per pupil. And I used to get the categories per pupil transportation costs. And I had a sheet with probably 20 local towns on it. And we were one of the few that owned their own buses. And we were one of the least expensive per pupil costs, not only in the area, but really in the state.
And that includes the cost of the salaries we pay and
Salaries, the cost of the buses. It is cost effective, but you got that other very, very important intangible that can't be overlooked, is is knowing the drivers and the drivers knowing the kids. That's so important.
Just to speak on that, and I would hate to mention somebody's name on that, but a nice young lady that drives school bus, drove my girls to school. Now she's driving my granddaughters to school, and she's friendly. My granddaughter trusts her completely. If there's an issue on the bus, she gets right out of the bus, goes up and knocks on the door. I don't think you'd get that from another company. I think it got very personal, and a lot of the bus drivers are like that.
And if you do contract it out, you don't know who you're getting on any given day.
Okay.
You just don't know. And you may get the same person, you may not. So, but anyway, yeah, it's very cost effective.
But that's your job on this committee, is to ask questions like that.
Yeah.
And that's-
Sorry, I didn't mean to hijack
No, you didn't, no. I know when I used to live in Braintree before I lived here, for their buses, anyone who had a child 7th grade and over, we used to pay $180, so $1 a day. But everybody kindergarten to 6th, we didn't pay anything. Not saying that that's a good model for here,
Well,
but that's what they did.
That's because it was by statute.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. That elementary gets it for free as long as you live in less than 2 miles.
Yep, that's exactly what they
And
did.
then the secondary does not, but if you're in a regional school system, well, effectively, the whole thing is supposed to be free, but it never is. You're supposed to get your reimbursed by the state. It never comes up to 100%. But yes, that's why
That's
the
why they
elementary
can't.
never paid.
They made us walk uphill both ways when I
In
was
the
a kid.
snow,
In the
we
snow.
can't do.
I believe it, because when I was in middle school, we used to take like the MBTA bus
I like that.
to, yeah. So, okay. So, and I'm only kind of going through the items that we did approve. You can see on here, there were other items that have come off since the initial list had come to us. But I'm just telling you the ones that we definitely approved. So then the school in total had asked for $308,750. They asked for the classroom. I do have the paperwork if you want me to pass around anything that they handed out as well. But they had asked for a classroom modernization plan for $45,000. They did initially ask for the culinary classroom to be renovated. However, they had an outside vendor come in and review that project and decided that the $460,000 they asked for was not enough, and this wasn't the time to do it. So they've moved that off to future years. So I don't know when that will definitely come back up, but that's been moved off for now. And my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it was gonna be over $1 million.
For what they wanted to, for what they wanted to do, but he did tell them to go back to, go back to the drawing board on that, but they decided to push it off anyway. But that's gonna reflect into the new Pathways program for culinary, that the high school and middle school are pushing.
Yeah. But it's not on for this year. They need a lobby, they would like the lobby renovated with a visual and performing arts pathway for $55,000.
Which lobby?
I'm sorry,
When you first walk into
I think so. I did
The
get
school?
one.
The middle high lobby or the?
Yeah, when
high
you go to vote.
Oh, okay, that lobby.
I'll pass this around, just so if you guys have any question, you can see what they did.
Well, we'll ask them
No,
on.
I'm sorry.
We can ask
Okay.
them on Monday. night.
Alan, I'm sorry, not to go to vote, to go to town meeting.
Auditorium.
The auditorium, going to the auditorium.
You sure? Want me to pass it anyways? If anyone wants it, I
Anybody
do
want
have
that?
it. It's, all the items that they requested, it's like a little
Do you have it in
synopsis.
do you have it in PDF?
No, I don't think so. Let me double check.
All right.
I can
I
scan this
might,
up to
I might
PDF.
have it now that you know, I might have a copy of that.
Okay,
So I will look through, and if I do, I'll send it to everybody.
I'll just pass it down if anyone
So you'll have
wants
it for Monday night.
And I can get it up in PDF if you want it. Yeah, so the next item they had on here was auditorium lighting in the AV booth for $67,750. They have two other items, but they're gonna be covered with a grant. It's to replace kitchen equipment for $40,000 and a walking track for $50,000.
Is that a new walking track? Or is that renovating an existing walking track?
That's the one I think that goes, that was existing behind the one they were gonna put in behind the elementary school. That one there,
Okay.
the outside pathway
Non-existent
one.
now.
Huh?
Non-existent now, right?
Right, it's been in the plans for the longest time, you know.
So they have a grant for that,
Yeah, they fundraised a ton of money.
for that too.
Mr. Marsh, the phys ed teacher, and they found an old, nonprofit that donated money. It's the way that they've pieced together the money to build that walking track is admirable. So, and it took a lot of work by a lot of people, but I know Mr. Marsh was a big part of it, so.
That's great. And then they have the curriculum upgrade, and it's for the elementary school for $20,000. So that's the total school. That is everything. So Council of Aging did come and speak to us, but the items that they had for their spotty Wi-Fi and their fax lines not working, actually going to go into the operating budget of FY22. So that was removed off of here. So in
So
total,
we're still gonna fix it,
yes,
but it's coming in this budget.
it's coming in this budget, and it's not going to include, it's not going to be in the FY23 capital. So the total we had for request is the $1,007,4,600. So that would be the total coming out of here.
But that would be less than 110.
Yep, so there is still a surplus in this account now because of the 110. It would be $522,883. However, I do want to note, Sue just stepped out, but there were 3 items on here.
I let her go because she doesn't have the information on the
She
bond.
doesn't? Okay,
So we're not gonna get anywhere with that tonight. We can discuss the concept,
okay.
but she doesn't have the final numbers on the bond, so.
So it would be to have 3 of these projects on the bond. Let me just make sure we give me the exact rate. It is up in the O&M, the $1.6 million that they have that says
Library
bonded.
HVAC.
Yes, and I think we've talked about that a lot over
Yeah,
the
we
last
have.
2 years. The other thing is the town hall exterior work, which,
It's close to 800,000.
yeah, so it's 288,000, I believe.
But there's 398 set aside.
Exactly.
In order to make the bond rates work, I think the suggestion was made that we put the entire cost of the siding in the bond, and then take the 395 and stick that back in the capital and debt stabilization fund. Because it didn't make any sense to just borrow $2 million, or whatever it comes out to. And we still don't know what gremlins are gonna be behind this siding and this trim.
Yeah.
So it just made sense that we keep on putting a few dollars here and there into the paint the town hall, and then we put money into it to side the town hall, and that wasn't enough. So just get it done, put it with the HVAC next door at the library, combine them, get the radio system done. The bond rate was, I think they were hovering around 2.5% or something like that. It was an excellent rate. It's only a 10-year note. So it made no sense to delay doing anything else. Because we've been delaying the library for a couple of years now. That started off at around 800,000, then went to $1 million, now it's $1.6 million. If we wait another year, it'll be $2 million.
Yeah.
So,
So do you have a total for the town hall exterior? It's gonna go on the bond?
I think we had come up with,
Somewhere.
you got five, is that right?
It's more than what's on this sheet.
It is
that-
more, I think it's almost 800,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
But of that 800,000, we have 395, and the 395 was, the idea was to put that back into the capital and debt stabilization fund.
And then the other project that would be bonded is the townwide radio system for the 598,000.
I thought we were gonna put in the additional money for the following year also and get it all done. I know
Could
Craig
be.
had said he cut it, and then he thought he might have cut it too much.
That's for 25,000, so that they may have to increase this 598 by 25,000.
Okay, but there was money there was in the capital plan for the following year, like a part two to this, I thought.
It could be.
And he said you could do the whole thing in one whack. We're trying to get the bond to where it made sense, was the best deal, the best rate. You had to get to a certain number and stuff.
So the bond has, sorry, the 288, I'm sorry, 653 plus 288 for next year.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So that was gonna be like 8 also.
So that would be part of the bond. So we're
Yeah.
bunching some money
We
from
bunch the two in
2021.
together and get it all done in one time.
Exactly. So that's what we met on. Does anyone have questions about it? As far as the bonding and the rates and everything, we need kind of Sue and Bob to go through that. We didn't take any type of a motion on approving any of the scenarios for the bonding. We're gonna bring that to Finance Committee.
And bonding's gotta go through town meeting no matter what. I mean, we could sit and jump up and down, it's still up to town.
But we do have a surplus left.
That's pretty good.
There's still over 500,000 left in the capital.
Great idea to put it in the capital and debt stabilization fund. A little more rainy day money, never hurt anybody.
Well, you're talking about the rainy day fund or the capital debt fund?
Well, it's up to where the town wants to put it, but, yeah. And actually, there'd probably be more than that in it, because, if we take the 395 we've got sitting aside to do the town hall siding and stuff, that's gonna wind up going back into some account, or stay where it is, or whatever, so, you know, we're in excellent shape, is what it boils down to, which is, to your point, when we talk about, you know, let's pick a project for recreation, it's not like we're on Skid Row over here. We're not, so we can certainly do some of this stuff, like we were able to take advantage tonight of a good deal on a dump truck. And that's what makes the difference between a well-run town and one that is not always so perfect. So we also have, correct me if I'm wrong, to help with the bond, I believe that 3 of the fire engines are coming off
They
a
are.
bond in 2 years. So they're paid. So now this new bond will come on, and these will come off. So while the numbers will be different, they're not gonna be, it's not gonna like be a wash.
Those are 500K apiece at the time.
It was like a 1.5, yeah.
Are we waiting to get some more information about
Yeah, well,
bonding
Bob's not here
recommendations
tonight because he's sick.
before we approve
and-
this?
And Sue didn't have, you know, she
Okay.
gotta get with Bob and get the presentation together, so,
No, but you obviously did your work. It's a good job. Thank you.
Yeah.
you know, but as far as the capital outlay portion is concerned, I think you guys did a great job with it. So,
Yeah. I think everyone did. It
All our
was,
share woman.
no, I think we all did. I think it was new, so we weren't very strong this year, but next year we really know what's going on. My only
I think you did
thing
a
I wanted,
fabulous job.
the only thing I wanted to say though is, again, let's see, how much is it? The townwide handhelds, the radios, the infrastructure for 598,000. I feel like if we decide not to bond, those probably still have to happen because we're in a year 2 phase of this project. And if that's the case, we would have to take this surplus of 522,000 and then cut something for about 80,000 on here. So I just want to make sure I said that out loud and that we all knew that. You know, if we don't bond for it, we need to come up with that money because we are in year 2.
We have a meeting on Monday night with the school. We certainly can, Beth will be here for FinCom. Bob will be here, if he's better, I hope. We can certainly touch on this. The three of you are more than welcome to attend that meeting also. If you want to come back in and talk about the bond, we can do it after the school thing. It's not going to take long on the school. I don't believe it's going to be very long, and then computer technology. The selectmen's meeting, the joint meeting is not May 1st.
March.
It is now, I'm sorry, March 1st. It is March 8th, which I think takes a lot of the pressure off the select board as well as the FinCom. It eliminates a select board having to look at a meeting that's going to run from 5 o'clock in the afternoon until God only knows when, and gives the FinCom the opportunity to have the undivided attention that night of the select board and vice versa, because we'll be the only thing on the agenda. So it certainly wouldn't be a terrible night to have the bond issue come up and do it all at that joint meeting with the select board, because they have to sign off on it anyway. So that would be a perfect opportunity to kill 2 birds with 1 stone when it comes down to the bond issue. So now you'll have the select board, you'll have us, and I'd certainly and like to see the capital outlay. Well, you'll be here, so, you know, Marie and Andy. So I think that would be a perfect time to bring forth the bonding issue at the joint meeting with the select board.
Yeah.
But certainly up to all of you.
And we did see some preliminary numbers in the bonding, but I feel like we really need to look at this with
Yeah,
Sue
they
and
were
Bob.
preliminary,
Yeah.
they were loose, they were very, and I don't even want to bring them out
No.
because they're not even close to what could be reality at this point.
Yeah.
So what's the plan? So 2 things, really. When do you guys plan on meeting to discuss the bond as a capital outlay committee?
We were gonna do that as the joint meeting tonight, so we would have to.
Schedule another meeting?
Yeah, schedule another meeting.
Why wouldn't they just do it with the select board on the 8th?
So do you have a joint meeting scheduled with the select board on the 8th, capital outlay?
No, we
No,
don't.
but in all honesty, Jim will be here as a selectman, Beth will be
Yeah.
here as a member of FinCom, and we can certainly invite Andy and Marie.
Yep.
And it can, presto, it can turn into a meeting with the capital outlay committee, the joint with the FinCom and the select board.
So do you have a backup plan if, so number one, you know, if the committee votes not to bond, right?
Yeah.
Meaning the capital outlay committee, because it's your decision. And then beyond that, if it's not approved at town meeting, sort of what the plan is to get the necessary things done on this plan, i.e. the townwide radios, right?
Yeah.
As something that I think is widely considered to be an essential need this year.
But I think so isn't the HVAC. I think the town has decided they're gonna have waited long enough to get this thing fixed.
Yeah, yeah, I think that'll come down to what town meeting thinks, I think, but, and whether it should be paid for with a bond versus with a capital budget. I know I have my own reservations. This, you know, this entire discussion about a lot of these items was something that was discussed ad nauseum last year. And a full analytics was done on whether these projects should be done with bonded funds. And the end conclusion was that it shouldn't be, right? I don't, 12 months later, see any difference in the discussion.
Then how do you pay for them?
What's that?
Then how do you pay for them?
Capital budget. But we would, so just to give some
Well,
background.
you have to put them off then.
Or put other things off, right? You have to live on your diet, live on your budget. We had this discussion last year because it was stated repeatedly by the leadership in town that there was absolutely no way to get the Plymouth Street Waterline project done without bonding money for that project. And in order to do the Plymouth Street Waterline, you were gonna have to bond money. And therefore, why not bond the money for the library, and why not bond the money for the siding on Town Hall? We did the due diligence on that and met with bond counsel and determined that it was not in the best interest of the town to bond the money. And again, almost unanimously, the select board felt there was absolutely no way we could move forward with the Plymouth Street water line without bonding the money. And it turns out we were able to do it because we sharpened our pencils and did the due diligence and
No,
did the
it's because
analysis.
the
And
water line came in at nowhere near the cost that the anticipated cost was gonna be.
and the finance director at the town found the money to do the project without bonding it, right? And again, if it was left up to the initial analysis, we would have been bonding the money to do the project without
Well,
finding.
I'd like to think that Cap Outlay, though, has looked into this a little more deeply than maybe that project was looked into,
Which one?
the Plymouth Street.
Maybe, but
We were the capital outlay
That's
committee
right.
with Plymouth Street.
That's right.
And
We
we acted on it because there was a gun to our head and a mandate, and the sky was falling, and the arguments were that by the time this was all said and done, nobody could give anybody a number. So the reason we thought to bond it was because we didn't have $1 million sitting someplace, and there was speculation of that. When the actual numbers came in at 3-something, it was like there was no need of a bond at that point. You're absolutely correct.
we did the due diligence and determined, we spent a lot of time on it,
We did.
and determined that we didn't need to bond the money to pay for the Plymouth Street water line, and therefore, why bond the money for the library and the town hall? Because bond council said it did not make sense to bond money at less than a certain dollar amount, and if I remember correctly, that dollar amount was $5 million.
What the trouble now is, with all due respect, we're at 1.6 million on the library. We are at 800,000 on this building, and we don't have that cash. So who, out of this list, we shut everybody off?
Yeah, so $1.6 million for the HVAC system is a huge challenge. I get that. But when you have a capital and debt stabilization fund that's meant to fund these projects, this is exactly what that fund is meant to
I
do.
don't disagree.
And so when you say, well, we don't have enough money in the capital and debt stabilization that this fund is intended to be utilized for these types of projects, we don't have the money there, so we're gonna go borrow money at the cost and the risk to future needs, right? I mean, you look at the capital budget for the next 5 years, it's not a healthy budget. And spending however much money on an annual basis on a bond payment is gonna make meeting those capital demands for the next 5-10 years that much harder to do.
Well, except you have to figure out what's coming off, like we know for 2 fire trucks are coming off, that's gonna reduce. So what we've always tried to do is basically maintain a certain amount going into bond every year, certain bond of payments going into bonds every year, some drop off, some come on. So you maintain a debt at a certain level, and as a matter of fact, it's healthy to maintain debt at a certain level.
We have plenty of debt, yeah. And we do. We have plenty of debt with the school, the elementary school, with the track project, with all sorts of stuff. We have
Anyway,
plenty
what it
of debt.
boils down to is whether or not we can wait to put off the items that you'd have to shut down in order to prioritize others. I spent 30 years on capital outlay. Sometimes we were told you got $600,000 to spend on $3 million worth of requests. So I know all about prioritizing and figuring out what you have to do and what you have to spend. We've been blessed with this new personal property money going into and creating this debt stabilization fund that we've been able to use to do all of this. So it just comes down to prioritizing. It's a blend of bonding and paying cash for things. So it's not like we're not using the money appropriately. And again, you're absolutely right. Town meeting is the one that's going to decide whether or not the library stays at 90 degrees upstairs for another 4 years
Yeah, I
before
think
we
they're gonna be sick of
fix it.
listening to this. They're gonna sit back and say, just fix it. Why wasn't it fixed? Fix it.
Well, I'd
And
like to
I've
know who
already
the
had- I
genius was
can't
that
tell you
buried
how many people
it
have
inside the
mentioned-
roof, so that you have to pretty much rip the roof apart
Well,
in
that
order
was
to
the
fix
other
the
way of
system.
doing it. And that was still $1 million. So, and how many people, and there's, everybody in this room can attest to this, that are in town hall all the time. How many people have said to you what town hall looks like from the outside? Or you. Bob Fennessy, one of the first things he said to me was, wow, this place really needs some work outside.
Yeah, my personal belief is that if these are the needs and this is what the money's utilized for, well, then you have to sacrifice other things and live within a budget. And I don't agree with sacrificing future budgets to get it done now.
So who do you want to shut off? You
Yeah.
want to shut off O&M? Maybe we shut off Craig Weston and the fire department. Tell the schools they can't have anything this
So
year, but we're going to put an HVA system in the library.
I can certainly appreciate the question, and the select board tried the same tactic with me last year. I am not prepared to tell you tonight who should be cut and who shouldn't be cut, nor is it my decision. It's capital outlay's
Well, with
decision.
all due respect, the whole thing is 1704, 800. So it's $1,704,000, and the HVA system's 1.6. So you have to either decide on the HVA system, or we throw the entire capital outlay budget in the trash.
That's exactly right.
That's all, you go sell that at town meeting, let me know how you do with that.
I'm just telling you, I don't think citizens in this town are happy to continue to pay higher and higher taxes and continue to tell people that they don't have to live within a budget.
I don't disagree with you, but
So-
you're not gonna go in there and tell them they're gonna throw this in the trash, and we can give you AC and heat at the next door library.
Well, I
And by
guess
the
we
way,
need, I guess
still
we need
can't-
to hear a bond analysis. I'd like to know where we are on the money that we're bonding now, historically. Is it about the same level that it's always been? Is it higher? Is it lower? Because my understanding was, we try to maintain the bond level to be at the same amount. We have things dropping off, then things come on.
right.
And that's just a healthy way to conduct business.
There's always a blend.
Yeah, I do know that we do need it, the full analysis from Sue, but when the trucks drop off, we're gonna be at that same exact payment. It's gonna be right around.
Well,
the same.
and if you, based on your 5-year plan here, we've got other trucks that we're gonna add on in 5 years. So it's great to say, oh, money will be available, the same way they did when the library came off the bond, they said that money will be available, and then we had to utilize it to build an elementary school. So when bond status changes, there's just a different need at that point in time, and that levy money gets eaten up with a different need. This isn't a new problem. It's a problem that continues to exist, and I just don't like leveraging our future capital that's gonna be available for projects to bond things that we should be planning for and doing appropriately at the right time.
But we have been doing that. What we've pulled off, what we've been able to do because of this debt stabilization fund is absolutely incredible. $10 million of repairs at the high school, that we're able to work into bonding. I mean, it's, so many towns have nothing like this in place that's allowed us to maintain the quality. We can let the infrastructure go down the pike again. We did that once, and we spent 20 years trying to rebuild it. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but you're suggesting that we're frivolously spending money.
So I am definitely not suggesting that, and I haven't once intimated that in any way.
No, but you're suggesting that we have no problem driving up the taxpayers' what they pay in taxes, and I don't think that's the case at all.
So I'm not suggesting that of you
I mean,
or
you got a
anyone.
fire department that it is like maybe probably at 1/5 what our local departments are. We get an ambulance department that pays for itself. We go out of our way to try to keep expenses down.
Point to a taxpayer in this town that will tell you they're perfectly fine with our tax liability.
Yeah,
The
if you
reason
bring it
why
down to
they're not
zero,
is
they'll be
because they're not
happy.
informed that 70% of the money goes to the schools. And you and I have this argument all the time.
It's got nothing to do
These
with this.
people would hate their $10,000 a year tax bill until they find out that 7,000 of that goes to the schools and they're an empty nest. And don't think they don't sit back and
Anyway,
look at
this
the
is
bug
it's
eye.
not a school thing because
No, it's not.
Our
But
schools
you can't just sit
aren't
back
funded
and
to the level
accuse
they
us
should be funded.
Of overpaying for taxes. There's a price you pay to live in Carver. This is it. I'm sorry.
We went through the analysis 12 months ago and reached the conclusion that it made 0 cents to bond the money. And now,
But that's not the whole story, Adam. That's not the complete story, that it made 0 cents. There was more to the story.
Anyway, I'd like to see another analysis
Yes.
and recommendation. I mean, I understand that there is an optimal level to bond at. That makes sense, but it also depends what your needs are.
yeah, and I think there is a substantial discussion that needs to happen about the immediate need for $1.6 million for a second floor air conditioning system. We're not talking about an entire building that doesn't have air conditioning.
But
Or an entire building that doesn't have heat. We're talking about the second floor of the library that doesn't have air conditioning. And that is what is the catalyst behind a $1.6 million need. Air conditioning on the second floor of the library.
That's
Not
absolutely-
air conditioning on the first, not heat on the first and second.
It's absolutely not true.
What is it then? Because that's what I was told.
No, it's wrong.
Okay, what is
It's the
it?
entire HVA system in the building.
No, the $1.6 million would replace the entire HVAC system. The only reason why there is a need to replace the HVAC system today is because the HVAC system on the second floor does not function
And now one of
appropriately.
the condensers for the first floor unit went also. So we have a system in the attic that's 20 years old, and they can't replace and repair any of it. So it's just gonna get, this is gonna exponentially get worse. We can say no, and then next year it'll be a $2 million system because we gotta put a roof in the building or something else.
It's $1.6 million this year as opposed to $1 million last year because nobody did the proper due diligence to determine what the project would cost. To talk about $1 million last year was because somebody guessed at $1 million. It's not because we did the proper due diligence. If you remember, we had to approve money in the capital budget to do an appropriate engineering study
$50,000.
to determine what we needed in the system, and that's why we arrived at 1.6 million.
That's correct.
So it's not because of rising cost of widgets and
Because
butter.
nobody gave anybody the authorization to go spend 50 grand and do the study until last year.
So
Prior to that, it was part of the back end of the Council on Aging building and all that controversy that went on with that, and then that's where it all started.
It's been a
Well,
known issue for years.
Yeah, well, if we don't add on the Council on Aging building, then you know it's gonna cost over $1 million to replace, and that's where that number came from. It's gonna cost over $1 million to do the heat and AC in that building, because you gotta take the roof off. And that's where it just grew from there. When I heard 1.6 million, I looked at Dave Seidenthoff and I said, are you kidding me? You're kidding me. This is a joke, right? I can't wrap my head around that number at all. I don't see how you can't take the thing apart one screw and nut and bolt at a time and cart it out. For $1.6 million, it's a lot of money.
Well, at any rate, we're not gonna solve it tonight, so if we can get it for a bond report, it'd be helpful.
Yep. So they were gonna present that tonight, that was on our agenda, but Bob's not here tonight, so we'll move it to another
When we
night.
pay $50,000 to have a analysis done, like, that to me is, I don't understand that concept. Like,
Because this is government stuff, you can't do anything without
so
an
you
engineer.
can't have a contractor come in and give you a price. It has to
No.
be done by like an
It's gotta be
engineer,
a
right?
bid, it's gotta be an engineered bid, it's gotta be the drawings and the dog and pony show, and this is Massachusetts, this isn't, Texas.
Were multiple bids taken on that? Do you know, Alan?
As far as I
Or
know,
Adam?
they were. As far as I know. So I'm under the impression then that you don't wanna act on the capital outlay budget tonight because you don't know where we're gonna go with the
Well,
bond.
yeah, I mean, my personal opinion is I could never vote to approve this capital budget, not knowing what the bond specifics are, and then also what the backup plan would be if the bond isn't funded or approved at town meeting. I'm not prepared to vote affirmative.
No, I'd like to know what the
Yeah.
bonding situation is too before approving the budget.
So you wanna table this?
Yeah.
So the question I have now is how do you wanna handle this? Do you wanna have another meeting with just the two groups before the selectmen's meeting on the 8th? Or do you wanna try to have another monkey wrench get thrown into it have it be a three-party meeting?
No, I think we should have another meeting with Finance Committee and Capital Outlay before the 8th,
Okay.
if that's okay.
You wanna keep the meeting on the
Guys
first?
okay with that?
Yeah.
We can't, because that's the selectmen's meeting, so that would be impossible for Jim.
No, they have their own meeting.
They have they're doing a special meeting for us on the 8th.
That's right.
How about the 7th? Is that, I assume that the 8th is a Tuesday? Am I wrong?
8th is Tuesday.
So how about the 7th?
I can do the 7th, can you guys?
Yeah.
Can everybody
I
do
can.
Monday the
You-
7th?
you do the 7th?
Here.
Yeah.
Do we need another separate meeting, just the capital
Yeah.
outlay before to
Yeah, well,
discuss?
yeah, let's have one more
All right.
meeting.
So you want to do that on the 7th, or you want to have a separate meeting with you guys?
We
Yeah,
can
we're
have
gonna
one
have a s-
separate first.
Yeah, we'll have a separate meeting before we meet with you guys on the
All
7th.
right, so you want to do it.
So 3,
You
7.
guys could do the 7th at 6 o'clock, and we could do the 7th at 7:30.
Does that work for you guys? Do
It's
want
up
just
to you
do
if
it
we
before?
That'd be enough
I can-
time for you, an hour and then you don't have
Yeah.
to tie up 2 nights, is what
Yeah.
my point is.
Are you gonna need time if we've discussed something and we have to do some discovery or
Or 5:30
inquire
and 7
Yeah.
o'clock.
with somebody? I mean, do you wanna do it the week before?
Yeah, let's do it the week before so that I can, if I have to print out
Okay.
a new deck,
All right.
you know,
Beth,
because I'll
you-
have to put the
I
numbers
just want to
down.
ask you something. You made
Yeah.
a statement that if we don't bond this item on here, we have enough money to pay for it, minus $81,000?
That was
So
the
I was
radio.
talking about the
It's
radios.
on the radio towers.
So because
Oh,
we
on the
have a
radio.
surplus
Right,
of,
not
That's
the
it.
whole
And
project.
that's it.
No, that's it. Which
Yeah.
means there's no siding, there's no HVAC.
yeah, so there's a surplus right now of 500, almost 523,000. If we also bumped out the brush breaker number 29 that Craig was okay with to next year, we could do the handhelds out of here, but we still could not do the siding.
Yeah, but there's still $175,000 gotta come out of next year's
Yeah.
capital outlay. And then Craig wants a command car for himself next year on the capital outlay, because his car's coming due. In the meantime, the police department still wants 2 more cruisers. So this is part of what we've evolved into. This is part of the 10-year operating plan, where we're trying to upgrade fire equipment, we're trying to upgrade cruisers, we're trying to upgrade O&M, and then we still have infrastructure costs. And nobody has still brought up what we're gonna do with the old fire station. Are we gonna demolish the old police station? We have a generator in this building, which is a joke. It powers the exit signs and emergency management. Which in this day and age, I think it's ridiculous that you can't have a generator operate when there's no power in the executive building of the town. And have everything in this town should run normal, like it does at the fire station, like it does at the police station, like it does for EMS. And yet this station, this building here, you're walking around with a flashlight. And I just don't, I don't get that. So I understand where you're coming from with this, Adam, but it's like your own house. There's always a project going on next year. So the longer you put it off, now there's 2 projects going on next year, then there's 4. So, you know.
It's just everything you charge on a credit card is a liability moving
You're
forward.
right.
And it gives you less money next year to do everything that, when you look, it's already an underfunded capital budget next year. I mean, there's stuff on the capital budget this year that wasn't planned for last year. The wood chipper and other things, right? That wasn't part of the forecast, that popped up and needs to be done. That's gonna continue to happen, and now you've got several $100,000 less than what you planned to cover a bond payment. If you force yourself to live within a budget, then you can live within the budget. But if you don't want to, and you wanna charge stuff on a credit card and pay it later, you can do that. It just makes your life more difficult moving forward. It's a cash flow problem.
But that's where we need to know where the budget payments are and where they're heading. If by bonding this, we're gonna stay on basically making the same bond payments we've been making, then we're following the track the way this whole program was set up.
Yeah,
If it's gonna increase our bond payments, that's a separate story.
Yeah, the 5-year capital plan we have should take that into account, and unless it's not a good 5-year capital plan.
I don't know that if it does or not.
And it continues to run at a deficit
Well,
based on
there's-
things we're planning for.
Well-
And again, that doesn't account for anything that's unforeseen.
Yeah, and we do need them because there are 3 different scenarios to choose from on the bonding. So that's the other thing, that's why that's not on here, the 3 different
Right,
scenarios.
and that's what we'd like to see as well.
Yeah,
Just to backtrack.
Yep.
The joint meeting on the 7th, do you want to do a 6 o'clock or do you want to do a 7 o'clock?
It's gonna be a true joint meeting, so whatever you want, either one's fine by me.
okay. We can do 7.
7 o'clock? 7 o'clock still works for
Can you
everybody?
do the 3rd?
Yeah. No, we're gonna meet, can you guys all do the 3rd?
Yeah, I can.
Okay,
What's the
I can do the 3rd.
what's the earliest you're
What's your
ever-
wife doing?
What was it?
What time do you get home from work? What time are you
Oh,
back
I'm
home?
usually home by 4:30. 4.
You wanna do,
Alan, March 7th at 7,
you wanna do
March
like a
7th at
5?
7.
and were you
I'm
asking for
around.
March 8th
I'm
at
around.
5?
What works
March
for you?
8th at 6.
At 6?
So March
This is the select
3rd
board.
is a Thursday.
I thought your email said 5.
Mark was asking
That's
for
what
the
it's
1st at 5.
At
And then
5?
today, he had sent me an email, he had
5:30?
scrapped us
5:30
on the
perfect.
1st, and they moved us to the 8th,
Yeah.
At
Thursday.
6.
Can you do that?
8th at 6,
And I'll get
7th
the
at 7.
an agenda.
7th at 7.
And then the 7th,
Finance
7
again.
o'clock.
And then the 28th, obviously, next Monday night is at 7.
Yep.
That's the school.
Is that all? Thank you. That's-
I get exactly where you're coming from with all of this. I just don't know how we're gonna be able to pull something that big off and just wipe the entire plan out, and there's still stuff that didn't get done, that needs to get done on top of what we're not buying, just in order to fix the heating system.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would probably have to be something that's phased in over time, similar to the way they've been trying to do the town hall siding, right? I mean, I'm setting aside, 80 grand a year for the last 4 years, that's why we have what we have in that account, right? You probably have to do the same thing over 2-3 years to set aside the money for the library system. If you took 2 years, it'd be $800,000 a year, right? So you don't have to cut everything on the capital budget, but you gotta find $800,000. And it's not telling people no, it's telling people we can't right now, which I think is the point of a budget.
And I did look, just so you know, like the wood chipper, I know there were questions about that one, do we need the wood chipper? But the one they have, so he did say they do need it, and the one they're still using, they bought in 1992. So it probably is coming up to time.
Well, and
to
we've
replace.
gone through an unprecedented amount of trees coming down in the last 5 years. It's not like the thing sits in the garage and gets cobwebs on it. They use it all summer long. So you get to a place where, I guess it boils down to, you had to listen during the last snowstorm, that 2-footer we had, when you literally heard the two guys in the service department try and take care of the town-wide plows. And that stuff's all pretty new, but you still had hydraulic hoses. There were guys calling up, my windshield wipers just stopped working, my lights stopped working. So, you know, these guys are working with this stuff every single day, and it's so easy to sit back and say, well, you know, it's a 92 wood chipper, just, you know, make do with it. But it gets to where it's outlived its usefulness, and now we're putting more money, if we can still get parts, we're putting more money into them than it's worth
I
to
guess
have.
when the tree falls in front of your driveway and they come down and do it, then you realize how valuable it is, right?
That's correct. That's right. So,
Okay, so we're gonna meet again, on March 3rd at 5:30 before we have a joint meeting with the Finance Committee.
Adam, I think your discussion, what you're talking about is a bigger town-wide discussion about finances. I mean, the Capital Building Stabilization Fund was a perfect vehicle for what it was. I mean, what it is. It created a lot of opportunity to get things done in this town without voting in overrides all the time, or even underrides, but still don't have that giant shock to the tax
Right.
bill. If you do an override, it'll never come off your tax bill.
That's right.
Right? But the problem is, with the building fund, the capital fund, it's based on your taxes going up by 2.5% every single year. You're not gonna get a break from it. You know, so it's, you have to like balance out what you wanna do. So if you get to a point where you don't have these projects to do anymore, then you won't need to vote these things in. But the problem is, always seems to be an issue or a need, unfortunately.
and then you get into the capital plan, you get a brand spanking new elementary school that was, you know, $50 million of our cost, and they tell you it's 3 years down the road, they need to spend, you know, look at the technology going out 2 more years. It's an $800,000 number for upgrades. And I thought that was insanity, run amok. Upgrades in a brand new building. I don't
You're
understand
talking about
upgrades.
the tech,
Yeah.
the 68,000 for the
Yeah.
tech?
And
Yeah,
then
that
they
was a-
admitted that it was overdone. It should never have been thrown into one lump sum like that.
And what they explained to me was when they built that building, that was the last year of the smart whiteboards. I think this is mostly to replace the boards in the classrooms. So they go to the touch boards now that are all interactive and stuff like that.
What happened to chalkboards?
I don't know.
I guess
I think
so.
the kids are missing
I
out
must be old.
on banging their races.
Well, that used to get you out of
they
class
never-
at the end of the
she
day.
never let me
You know,
do
you
it.
could get points.
You used to watch her do it.
Huh?
You used to like to watch her.
There's a reason why because these kids are so
Oh,
smart nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah, what happened to the noise in the
Smart
chalkboard?
boards,
That's
yeah.
gone. Anyway, sorry. I hear you, I understand where you're coming from. It's just,
Yeah, just, you know, it is a bigger
valid.
picture issue. It is a larger discussion. I just think that budgets exist for a reason, and it's not always comfortable and easy to tell people no, and, you know, or please hold off for another year. But that's the point of a budget. And I just think that, you know, again, you know, these were discussions that were labored over last year, and, you know, we've lasted another year, and nothing's, you know, fallen apart, nothing's caved in, you know, nothing's been destroyed. And I know you can't do that in perpetuity, but that's what a plan is for, that's what a capital plan is for. And if you plan accordingly and are frugal, then you remain a healthy government and a healthy municipal finance.
Which is what we've been doing. You're acting like we're spending money willy-nilly. I mean, this town is a model to towns surrounding us. I really don't know where you're coming from.
Well, because I don't want to go back to that place.
Exactly.
And
But
I'm
you don't know what the bond situation is yet.
So with all due respect, I do, because Alan and I are the only two people in this room that did the due diligence last year and did the analysis.
So
The
you're
capital-
saying that that's going to
capital outlay
significantly raise our bond debt if
The
we do
capital
this?
outlay committee that sits here tonight has not done the analysis that Alan and I did last year with a different town administrator and a different finance director, and reached the conclusion that it didn't make sense.
At any time? Or just last year?
At that dollar amount, for that type of project, it did not make sense. It made 0 sense to bond a dollar amount that small.
I'd like to hear it.
I'm telling you that that's the case.
I'd
And he was
like to
sitting there
hear
with
the
me.
argument myself to see if I agree with your analysis.
And that's perfectly fine. And they can go through the analysis and do it. I'm telling you, it's been done and it didn't make sense. Here we are 12
But
months
that was
later.
12 months ago. Maybe things have
Well,
changed.
With all due respect, it didn't make sense because that was also the goal of the presenter. So there was, no, I'm not, and I agree with him. What they come out with, it made sense. But that was also the goal of the presenter at the time. So, but we fast forward a year now, and I have to argue with you that you say nothing is falling apart yet. Yeah, more siding's falling off the town hall. More damage is being done to the building. So at what point do we say, geez, what a shame, this $800,000, and you think I like $800,000 for siding? I think it's ridiculous. We were gonna be able to side this building for 400 grand. But because of procurement laws, that wasn't good enough. We had to put it out for bid. Now suddenly it became 7-something. Because God forbid, whatever you can bill for $28, the state has to get $4 million for. So this is just the way it works. And if we continue to wait on this building here, more damage will be done. And the trouble with siding on this building and trim, I just did it on my house. I put a roof on my house. There were 3 sheets of plywood that had to come off. Yet the roof would look perfect where that plywood was. I would have thought it would have leaked elsewhere, and it wasn't. So we don't know what's going to happen when this siding comes off, so you're not going to get a locked-in bid. You're going to get a bid for this is the work we'll do, and here's what the extras will be. Because we don't know what's behind the shingles when we take them off. Now, Dave's best guess is we're in pretty good shape. He doesn't have x-ray vision either. We just did a grant for up the street for Union Society. Yeah. What did they find? They sent us pictures of what looked like an outside pillar that was in good shape, that was literally no support to it. It was hanging by a skyhook.
But we're not bonding the money for town hall siding. We're bonding the money for the library HVAC system.
And town hall siding.
No, because we're adding town hall siding and we're adding townwide radios to help justify the need to bond. It's the same discussion we had last year with the Plymouth Street water line. Only this year it's radios instead of the water line. We're justifying bonding the money by adding other projects to the dollar amount. We could find a way to do the siding on this building for $360,000 in addition to the $390,000 we have, if we were able to put off other capital requests for another 12 months.
Well, we have the $300,000. We have it in the overage. So we can easily do that.
So these things can be done if you live within the budget.
Okay, I just want to see you stand up at town meeting and tell them that the people in this town, we're not going to do your library this year. Because they've heard enough of that. I'm serious.
The library is open. People can go to the library and utilize the library.
Okay.
The temperature on the second floor of the library is a little high during June, July, and August.
A little high.
June, July, and August.
Okay.
And again, we had this discussion last year.
Yes, we did.
During a pandemic, when the library wasn't even open. So, I just think we need to be realistic about what we can afford and what we should be doing in a timely fashion and do it intelligently.
Don't get me wrong, I had issues with the library not being open also.
Nobody is suggesting that what we've done for the last 5 or 10 years has been careless financially. We're in good financial health because we were responsible. What I'm suggesting is we don't revert back to being irresponsible. And spending money that you don't have is how that happens.
Yeah, but almost everything on the capital stabilization fund has been bonded. They're using the fund to pay the bonds. I understand what you're saying, but almost every project that we pay out of that has been bonded.
The large projects, yeah, a $25 million or $50 million elementary school.
Yeah, but even the 2 or 3 fire engines that went through, that got paid through, that got bonded, and we paid the bond for that.
The debt stabilization fund pays the bonding.
That's how it pays.
Oh, I fully understand that.
Yeah, okay.
So it doesn't go back to the taxpayers.
No, I fully understand that.
You implied that the taxpayers would pay more money if we bonded the library.
No, what's going to happen is we are going to continue to spend money that we don't have, and then 2 years from now, we're going to have the next library project that needs to be funded, and we're not going to have the money for it in the capital and debt stabilization fund to do it. And they're going to go to the town and say, we need an override.
that'll
to
never happen.
fix this or fix
No.
that.
Well, you
I
def-
don't think that's
I mean,
even
for that-
anywhere, I don't think
That's how,
that's anywhere
I
near
mean,
even close.
you can act like I'm grasping at straws here. It's how every other town in the municipality, in the state does it.
No, you're right.
Because they're
I
not
understand.
I was
responsible.
here when this system was born, and I helped shepherd the whole idea through to get it to this point where it is operating. I guess I need to see that, I haven't seen the numbers in a couple of years. Show me that our bonding has climbed dramatically, and our bond payments are climbing dramatically
It
as
hasn't.
opposed to staying where they've been.
Because we've been responsible.
And if this is gonna be irresponsible, then I would side with you on it. But if this is gonna fall in line with what we've been doing, then there's nothing wrong with it.
And you definitely need the cap space in that fund to not only pay what your responsibilities already are, but if you want to do things in the future, you need that room to have, so you can afford to go under the 2.5%, increase every year. You never want to go above that. I mean, I think, as a taxpayer myself in this town, I think that's too high every year, because it's cumulative. I mean, all of a sudden, you look, your tax bill went from 2,000 to now 4,000, 5,000. And I understand when people say, why are my taxes so high? But if you're not really paying attention to all the projects that have been done.
And again, our taxes are in the lower third of Plymouth County.
Well, I know, but still, for Carver, it's still expensive for people who've lived here a long time, So I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and my father would tell you that in 1940, he brought home $21 a week.
Yeah.
It has no bearing on,
I know.
this is what it is. And a lot of it is Prop 2.5's fault. It's this automatic increases. There's a lot of people in this room that work for a living that don't get a COLA, that don't get an automatic step raise, that don't get a lot of the stuff that we give. That's just that's the way it goes.
So the capital outlay committee, we will make sure that we get their analysis on our next meeting and have it for our joint meeting on the 7th.
Get that pencil sharpener out.
We will make sure we have it for you.
And
we'll meet with them
I mean,
before.
Michael used to provide us with the long-term outlook on the debt and so forth, so that everything was even all the way through.
Yep.
If that's changed, if we're now climbing, I'd like to know that.
We're not.
Well, that's- but I mean-
we have a different,
We will get that analysis.
We
We
have
can
a
ask Mr.
different
Fen, I mean, ask
finance
Mr. Fennessy or Sue to give us that analysis so that we can see what's happening with it.
all right, we have no minutes available. I had, after the 17th, today's only the 24th, I gave Ashley a break and said, don't kill yourself, they were long minutes. Nothing else 48 hours in advance. The next meeting date is the 28th. The 9/1 meeting with the select board's been canceled. It's now 3/1 meeting's been canceled. It's now 3/8, and our next meeting will be, our meeting between them will be 3/7. So I'll send all that out. Any other committee member comments? Take a motion.
Motion
Could
to
we-
adjourn?
Hold on, we need to vote on our minutes.
Oh,
That's
well, we
okay.
can adjourn.
Yeah, yes.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion made and seconded for the finance committee to adjourn. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. We are out. Now you guys can,
Thank you.
See that you sent me the picture of the dog.
they still have a meeting going on.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from January 27th.
Okay, all those in favor?
Abstain.
Abstain,
I wasn't
okay.
here that meeting.
Yep, so, 3 ayes and 1 abstain. So, the ayes have it.
How are you?
Then, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn?
The ayes have it. Have a good night.
Aye.
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 I'm not trying to-
Sorry, it's been a burn.
Yeah, that sounds good.